And we are live. The SMT Podcast. And we got some guests coming in today. I believe it is December 17th, 2021, 8:38 at the time of this recording. Appreciate you all for being here this evening for the live show. Hashtag 2LiveCrew for those of you here during the live broadcast. And for those of you watching this on replay, hashtag ReplayCrew. Regardless, we appreciate you. So thanks for coming through and watching, listening, however you are participating in tonight's show. Let's say hello to some people as we invite and welcome Dennis. Dennis, what's up, Broham?
Not too much. Just coming from a fantastic backstage Twitter stream. I think we went on for like 3 hours doing that. Honestly,
Yeah, it was going, man. I usually like to do the Twitter Spaces and let people kind of discuss the news of the day. And I usually kind of like sit back for a while and let everybody engage in the discourse. But it's usually good, man. It's fun. I like kind of the interaction, and the Twitter Spaces are cool. For those of you that don't follow me on Twitter, my link for my Twitter handle is in the description box. @SneedTech is the Twitter handle. Follow us there. I always tweet the videos and the content. So if YouTube is dropping the ball on the notifications, definitely follow us there, and you'll get the notifications for the videos when they go live. Big Kaz, what up, man? Let's say hello to some people here. We got Ethan. We got Zeke. Good to see you all. Blind Tech Adventures in the house. He said, yeah. What's up, Nimmer? Good to see you, man. Just had a name change. Welcome, C-Band. It's on its way, man. We're excited about it. Flyboy Rex is here. What's good, buddy?
what's up, Blind Tech? Thank you.
Baby Yoda's in the house. We got Shay is in the house. My brother Jose is in the house. We got Troy. Good to see you, man. That's right. Big Term is in the house. Who else we got? We got RFK. I don't know if Ricky might be working, but did I put him on to get the link? We'll see. If Ricky's available, we'll try to get him on too. We got Starlight in the house. We got Troy. Got it. Curtis, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. Best Tech Channel. Thanks, Ricky. I appreciate it, man. That's nice of you, bro. I don't know about best, but we do have fun over here. It's definitely engaging. We could definitely say that. All right, Dennis. So what's goody, man? You keep up with today's news on the C-band initial testing from the media members and the industry guys?
Well, you did update me behind the scenes, so I have a rough idea of what's going on, and it looks promising.
Yeah, we're seeing 1+ gigabit speed in kind of like the ideal scenario. Not a lot of users on the network. Probably newly optimized sites, a combination of small cells and macro cells. And it was in LA. What I think is called the what do they call that? The live entertainment district, I believe. So it's a good venue to test capacity, but the problem is not everybody is connecting, right? So you just have a handful of people testing it. I would assume maybe a couple hundred people are probably testing those sites, if that.
It's probably less, to be honest, man.
Yeah, I mean, because like they're handing people the devices. Like Verizon gave the Samsung Galaxy phones to the people, so it's got the firmware and it's got the SIM cards in it. Basically, people just are speed testing, walking around testing it in different locations. But the encouraging thing was they did show that there was testing going on in those concrete garages, car garages, and they were saying that like 2 levels down, they were still connected.
That's impressive. Those are tough to cover. I know here in Pittsburgh, a lot of times what you end up seeing is small cells basically inside those parking lot garages, if at all, to make sure coverage is provided. So it's impressive they're able to pull that off with C-band from a macro without the need of those repeaters or small cells.
Yeah, Zeke, that's a good concern. You think about the capacity potential. I think we're going to see probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a realistic 5 to 800 megabits per second on the N77 connection for Verizon.
I think you're being optimistic, Sneed. I think the real world scenario is going to come down more to like 3 to 400 once everybody's actually connecting to it.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the 5 to 800. I think 800's the optimistic side. I think 500's the realistic side. I mean, because I'm seeing what they're doing with CBRS right now, and I very regularly see 300 to 400 peak usage times, and that's 60 megahertz of LTE. So I'm gonna stick with 500 to 800.
I guess the question is when we're saying these speeds, are we basing it off of, I think, what did they put up? 40 megahertz, right? Was that what they used?
No, they got 60 up there, but they do have some LTE on there as well, some NSA, right? So you're probably getting a 20 megahertz channel of PCS or AWS. You're probably getting an additional 10 megahertz of band 13. So there's some additional spectrum there that is probably giving it another 100 to 150 megabits.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to the full on glory days where Verizon is able to say throw up 80 megahertz, 100 megahertz, stuff like that, I can see them easily cracking a gig plus. But if they're doing what they have to do right now with everything that's going on with the FAA, and they're only doing like 40 megahertz slivers, maybe 60, and then combining it with like NSA, kind of like when T-Mobile first deployed N41, I'm sitting pretty at that 300 400 mark.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. I think also as it densifies, the expectation is that the speed picks up more consistently.
Well, right, because you'll be offloading some of those consumers onto a different cell site. But I'm just saying, as far as the early phases go, I think it's going to look a lot like what N41 looked like from T-Mobile.
So you got it between like 250 and 300.
I was saying 300 400 to be a little more optimistic to Verizon's credit of engineering, but yeah.
Tech with Obeds. He said, "What's up, Sneed? Prayers for T-Mobile. C-band getting 1200 megabits. I think it's on 60 megahertz, so a little bit more bandwidth there, but they definitely are going to have a competitor. I think the C-band is. I think it's going to be a really high quality, meaningful connection for a lot of people. I know we got to get through this whole FAA situation, but I do think it. I think it's going to be fine. I think we're going to see a live launch, right on time, beginning of the new year. People can start testing it. My concern is how many sites have it when it goes live, right? 5,000 sites, 10,000 sites nationally. How many small cells?
Are you familiar with the term a paper launch? Are you familiar with that term?
Not really. I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
Okay. It might be a business thing, but basically, like, a good example of this is graphics card this year's, right? Like, NVIDIA announces they released the RTX 3060, right? Come to find out, there was only like maybe 100 to 1,000 of them that were only available for sale or something stupid small like that. So even though it was officially launched, no one could access it or buy it. Same vein, I think C-band's going to fall a little bit in that camp where they might have it in, say, the top 25 markets. I'll be generous. Top 25 markets. But even in those top 25 markets, it's not going to be like actually like really available 100%. Like, it might be like one or two important clusters, like in like the downtown areas, and then like slowly branch its way out. And the same way when like mmWave came, it was like 0.001% of the network was able to access mmWave. I think it's going to be a paper launch. But I do think it will be next year. I mean, we know, I think this is, let me ask an important question. Have you been to a Verizon store like within the last couple days? Like a corporate Verizon store?
No, should I?
Yes, you should. Because I'll just say this, and I'll let you do a nice surprise video on it. I'll leave it up to the viewers to go see if it's in their area yet. But basically, Verizon this week did some improvements on the inside from a marketing material standpoint at their corporate stores. And I think you'll see something interesting if your corporate store was one of the lucky ones.
Imaging and branding?
Yes, it has to do with imaging, marketing, and branding, and it allures to the C-band topic that we're talking about.
Oh, damn. Okay, so you call it a paper launch, but I mean they do have to announce it. It's meaningful enough to their network where it is worthy of customers knowing what it is. Because they did the same thing with the ultra-wideband, and that was not worthy of the major mention, right? It just simply is not in enough places and built at enough depth for them to actually have marketing focus on it, right? Like, they did that because they had to. There simply was no other spectrum. But now they have a spectrum that actually has reach and be more meaningful more instantaneously. Like, here's how I foresee the C-band launch. January, 5,000 sites go live. February, an additional 3,000 sites go live. Like, I am literally expecting a few thousand sites each month turning on for the first 6 months. You know, like, I expect 20,000 cell cell sites to have C-band live by the end of the year. I think it's going to be that much of a feverish pace. And then once the rest of the spectrum goes live in 2023, they'll start to do the rest of the sites, right? So then the following year, I think it'll be like another 10,000 sites. You know, so they'll be at like 30,000. The following year, another 10,000. So like within 3 years, I expect half of Verizon's network to be on C-band, at least half.
I 100% agree that it'll be a feverish pace of deployment, considering the spending that's going into it. Like, I 100% agree with you. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But as far as, like, when does it become real? Like, when am I actually able to connect to it on a fairly consistent basis instead of, like, a stand in the right location kind of a situation? Okay, I don't see that happening until, like, maybe Q3 at best of next year. Like, I feel like that's being pretty generous to Verizon, like, with their skills and stuff, but I still think it's not going to be till like Q3. Like, right around the holidays.
So here's how I look at it. If the only things we can look back at for a comparison, there's a couple of things. Number one is the AWS launch and build. Number two is T-Mobile's N41. Those are really the only two mid-band builds we have in recent history in which densification was important. PCS densification never happened, right? It just didn't. It was 3G and it was converted to 4G. So it never was an LT-based connection or a 5G-based connection until recently. So if we look at the AWS build, Verizon killed it. They absolutely destroyed the AWS build, right? Verizon's network is built on an AWS footprint in suburban and urban areas, right? Now, T-Mobile more recently with the N41 build. Let's look at that because this is going to be parallel, right? It's a perfectly aligned comparison. It's 5G, it's mid-band, and it's the focus of their year's build, network build. Do you think that Verizon will build C-band faster than T-Mobile built N41?
I want to say yes, but I have a hard time because there's factors that I'm trying to take into consideration.
I have one factor. And it's the only one that matters.
It's money spent, right?
$10 billion dedicated to C-band deployment.
I knew you were going to bring that up, but here's the factors that
what was T-Mobile's CapEx?
Like $10 billion for the whole thing.
For the whole network.
Yeah.
That's towers, that's upgrades, that's modernizations, and N41 and N71.
But Sneed, here's the things that I'm trying to take into consideration. One is that I think about how Verizon does deployments. Verizon doesn't just flip switches to show off a 5G. Like, they might have C-band sitting on a tower, ready to rip, but they're waiting on a backhaul improvement before they actually flip the switch, right?
I can't blame them for that. Why would you turn on spectrum that can't be pushed?
Hold up, don't cut me off yet, because I don't blame them for that. I've harped on T-Mobile, but think about how T-Mobile does things. They'll flip the switch to show the N41 even if the backhaul hasn't been upgraded. So what I'm getting at is that Verizon, because of the nature of how they do things, they like to do it once, do it right. I think that's going to slow down the build out and actually usability of that coverage, even if the equipment's already on the site. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, 100% agree. The tower site, my home site, has had C-band and CBRS done on the site for weeks. It's still not on.
So that's what I'm getting at. Like, so I'm saying that's going to slow down the build.
To me, I think you're 100% right in terms of activation and live broadcasting. But here's the thing, Dennis. That site, I swear to you, Dennis, does 50 megabits per second down and 30 megabits per second up. It doesn't drop. It doesn't increase. It is stuck. And that tower site went down for the upgrades. Do you know what happened to the Verizon network in the area?
Nothing, because there's probably redundant networks.
Exactly. Nothing. Yeah. So there are certain things that I think that in certain markets, certain carriers get away with certain things. Like here, the Verizon grid is very tight. They have that leniency, that leeway, that that little bit of I don't know,
Redundancy.
a little bit of redundancy, right? And a little bit of slack. No other carrier can do that here.
And that's AT&T here in Pittsburgh all day.
Yeah, AT&T might be able to do that in Pittsburgh. I'd have to, it's been a while since I tested AT&T there. I'm gonna go. We're gonna hang out, Dennis. We'll do some testing.
If you look at not to get too sidetracked, but if you were to look at like how AT&T's coverage layered, picture like a 4-leaf clover. That's basically how their like cell sites kind of look. Like there's a little bit of overlap on the sides, but that's kind of how it looks. And then like a surrounding Pittsburgh itself, picture like a donut, except the donut doesn't actually have a hole in the middle, and there's a cell site in the middle as well as the outskirts covering in.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, so when I saw this, when I saw these stories coming out, a part of me was happy because it means that we're closer to C-band, and then I got a little bit of contact from some of my Twitter followers and people that I interact with, and they're in Germany, they're all over Europe, and they tell me that the Verizon speeds that they were seeing were average.
Yeah, I mean,
They were telling me that
true.
like, yeah, they're like, oh, 1.6 gigabits per second. That's decent. And I'm thinking, what? And then I was like, yeah, some of the sites are doing like 1.2, 1 gig. They're like, yeah, that's pretty average. I'm thinking to myself, how, right? And it's just the fact that they're further along in their optimization. They're further along with the utilization of MIMO tech. Maybe the fiber they're using is of higher capacity.
Also, remember too, they don't have a big chunk of their spectrum just dedicated to the Department of Justice, and they have wider channels.
Yeah, I mean, and they're running on full power. They're at 64 dBm, right? What is that, decibel per megahertz or whatever that metric is? So they push the signal really, really strong. The one thing that I will say that they mentioned is that they said it's promising that we're finally getting to use the C-band. So that's good. But they were curious. They're like, how come Verizon, because it was directly at Verizon. They said, why do they only have 60 megahertz? And I made it very clear. It's not that they only have 60, it's that they have 60 for now. So when I told them that they had an additional 100 that was clearing in a second and third block phase, then they're like, oh, okay, well, that's meaningful, because what happens there, that's when you start to see the 2 and the 3 gig speed, right? Because those channels get super wide and you could start aggregating carriers and channels. And, I mean, and those are fair assessments. That's fair criticism. You know what I'm saying, Dennis? Like, here's the thing, though. The only reason anyone is impressed by these speeds is because when like N41 first launched, it was getting like 200 or 300 megabits. Right, like T-Mobile wasn't really pushing it. They hadn't really densified. They kind of like, they're like, all right, well, we'll install the gear on a site and then we're going to turn it on. And it was like a speed island. And once you went beyond half a mile, it was gone. Right, you have to densify. And once T-Mobile started to densify here, it became a more ubiquitous connection. The speeds improved. As the density improved, the quality of the signal improved, and then the uplink improved tremendously, which we can't overlook. Like, uplink is so critical as a 5G use case. Everybody's talking about like home internet, and I agree. I totally agree. Fixed wireless is great, and everybody's looking at latency, and that's important too. But like, the fact that I can't live stream on certain carriers because the tower handoffs lack uplink control continues to be a problem that plagues my experience. There's really one carrier that I trust to live stream from, and it's Verizon, because the tower grid is tight. The RSRP, the signal strength, doesn't really drop. So when I live stream, I like to use Verizon. Any other thing, I can use any carrier. But that one task, I have to use Verizon.
I'm going to be 100% honest. When it comes to uplink, even AT&T, and you see me pull some exceptional upload speeds at my house, I don't think any of the carriers are actually doing the best of jobs when it comes to an uplink standpoint, put simply. Like, everything is relative. Like, the reason why we're so excited about N41, right, is because we have to remember where T-Mobile was before N41 hit their network. There was a lot of areas where it was like sub sub 10 megabits per second. So going from 10 to 300 is exceptional for people.
Oh, it's major, yeah.
Like, but I also just want to say on that same vein, to the typical person, unless you were running a speed test, once you hit like 50 megabits per second, it's really hard to start noticing the differences unless you're like downloading an app update from the App Store or something, right? Like, are you going to notice the difference between 50 and 300 when you're watching a 1080p YouTube video?
No, but that's only video consumption. So
Right.
like what I'm speaking to is if we build a list of the 5 most important tasks to a consumer's usage, all right, how good is a carrier at allowing those tasks to happen? Okay. So if live streaming is one of them, right, that's important for uplink. FaceTime and video calls, that's important to uplink. If you're a content creator and you are uploading video on the go, that's important to uplink. Those are 3 of my most important top 5 things I need to do. Downlink for me, honestly, is just video consumption. I actually don't do much with my downlink. I don't download massive files on my devices. I stream both ways. I stream downlink on my video consumption, and then I upload or live stream content. So I look at the networking piece a little bit differently. You know, the average user needs 25 megabits per second down. They just need it all the time. I hardly ever need more than 5 megabits per second down, maybe 10. I don't see a 1080p video my phone can't play on 10 megabits per second. But I have had FaceTime calls drop having poor tower handoffs and weak uplink.
See, uplink, but the reason why I brought up that one thing was because you talked about the comparison to other places. But focusing back on the uplink, I'm going to say it again. I don't think any of the carriers are necessarily doing a fantastic bang-up job when it comes to uplink. And I don't think upload speeds are going to get to where you want them to be or where I would like them to be until we fix some certain issues. Some of them revolve going to standalone 5G to improve range. Others have to do with the actual density and layout of the towers themselves, because uplink, unlike downlink traffic, is heavily dependent on the SINAR. Like, when you're on that cell edge, the first thing to suffer is your uplink speeds, dramatically so. Like,
and that's why I've always been a proponent of, you know, like in my case, using the carrier that's got the tightest grid.
Yeah. But I mean, even in the best case scenario, like of a Verizon, like there are still plenty of places with a Verizon or an AT&T in my market where uplink will drop to like 5 to 10 megabits per second, still usable, but not the 60 to 100 that you might get in ideal scenarios, right? Like, it's just a fact of the matter that that's just how it is. And I don't think that's going to improve until we start moving to standalone, start doing some fancier things to, well, obviously allocating more spectrum to the uplink side anyway, and other fancy things to improve that experience. Right now, all the networks on 5G are focusing still, again, on download speeds, primarily. Uplink's primarily still being handled by LTE, which is the weak link in the chain. So, I don't know. That's just my view on it. I mean, look at mmWave 5G. What's being used for the uplink right now? Still LTE.
And they're doing mmWave on uplink too.
It's starting to happen.
Yeah, whenever you see, like, I think Apple Watts has shown a couple of good speed tests of like 300-400 up on mmWave. That's pretty impressive.
That's insanely impressive.
Yeah, but that's the needle in the haystack. I think the fastest I've gotten was like 295.
Also remember too, something else that's important. We actually need devices that will be able to take advantage of the things that are being deployed, like the new Snapdragon 8 series modem that's able to carrier aggregate all these different 5G bands too. So, like, as far as like realistic things that happen, like if you need to do massive uploads, like I'm not talking about like a FaceTime call because that's very well optimized, but if you need to do like a massive upload,
a 4K, HDR, 60 frames,
there's
5-minute video.
There's only one answer to that, and people aren't going to like when I say this, but it's a home internet connection that has fiber.
It's the most effective way to do it. That is 100% true.
There's just not a single other option out there.
If our mobile networks could do 100 megabits up, would you still feel that way, Dennis?
No, I wouldn't feel that way. I mean, I've said this before, but like, if I was like, you know, dictator Dennis for a day, right? And I could somehow magically snap my fingers and say, this is broadband speeds. This is what everything should be able to do. Wireless, home internet, whatever. I would basically set the bar as 100 by 100 because you can literally do everything for the foreseeable decade with that kind of speed.
Yeah. I mean, if I could get a guaranteed 100 by 100, I think that's an extremely valuable connection.
Peter just told me that 100 meg up is a joke.
Dang, you got some standards, dog. That is the bearded dragon. He's tough, man.
I disagree. I mean, like, I think I said this before, but like, you've heard me rag on Fios before, right? And I said if Comcast could magically tomorrow somehow pull something out of their butt where they were like, yeah, we can offer you gig down, 300 up, I would probably just switch because like 300, like at some point you get to a speed where like it's diminishing returns, like the noticeable difference, improvement, quality on my life, time saved, all those factors, it's diminishing returns. It happens somewhere around 300 to 400 megabits per second.
Bro, look at these guys, man. They're going in, bro. 300
standard should be
3. Wow.
I'm talking about a bare bones benchmark, and remember, folks, we're coming from 25 by 3.
Yeah. That's why I was looking at 100 by 100 as in like a big victory, right?
That is an insane victory. That is extreme. I think the FCC right now is trying to push it to 100 by 10, I think. Yeah, so, right. I mean...
yeah, these guys got some...
Listen, I'm going to call it right now. Hold up. I'm going to call something out right now, and I'm going to get a lot of flack in the comments for it. But you have a better chance of pigs flying before you could hope to see 300 by 300 symmetrical consistently over 5G within the next 5 years.
Man. These guys are tough out here, Dennis. You see this? We got 100 by 35. We got...
I mean, it's good to be idealistic, but like we got to also be pragmatic and realistic with reality, right? Like the fact of the matter is, for better or worse, the carriers are going to do what makes them money. And it's a lot easier to market if they would somehow were able to market a consistent gigabit download speed to the average consumer. They're going to think that's fantastic. And if upload's only 200, that's good enough. In fact, better than what the average consumer gets on cable, and they'll probably be just fine and happy. And the other fact of the matter is that although we're living in a world where, especially on mobile phones, where we're creating more and more content for TikTok and Instagram and all these other different services out there, right? The fact of the matter is that these services are very well optimized, and on the upload side of things don't need as much bandwidth as one might think. Like your streams to YouTube are probably the most demanding use case that one can think of.
Yeah.
Because everything else is not so demanding. Even in the corporate enterprise world, you know, there might be one or two instances where someone sends a large file, but that's not like a prolonged thing, and it can be deprioritized below other tasks, and it doesn't really get too much in the way.
So check this out. So Moose is trying to get me on the wireless side over at the Death Star, right? And that still remains one of my reservations, is that that's one of the that's really the only carrier I can trust for the live streaming. I mean, Dennis, I drove half the state of Ohio on a visible connection. I live streamed the whole thing, and it got blurry for like 2 seconds one time. Like, it never disconnected. It never failed. It never dropped a frame. Like, that's not impressive.
Do you know what would really be impressive to me, Sneed?
Oh, by the way, Dennis,
what?
I just got an update from one of my followers on Twitter. There is a live C-band site for Verizon in Pittsburgh. I'm getting the address for you right now.
Oh, I got the lowest Verizon access.
Okay, you got the lowest Verizon. Okay, you're going to do a live stream on this, all right? I need you corresponding for the SMT. Can you do that?
As long as the roads aren't bad, I'm down.
Okay.
Look, I'm going to keep it 100. I'm a terrible driver.
Oh, sheesh, Dennis.
I can't parallel park.
Oh, man.
and that's rough for the city.
Oh man, everybody, good luck.
Listen. I grew up in the sticks, bro.
Oh, the sticks.
Dude, we had freaking tractor. Right? We had tractor days at my high schools. Okay.
Dang, tractor day.
Yeah. Anyway, sidetracked. But Sneed, going back to my original thing I want to talk about. Do you know what I would actually be impressed by?
What's that, Dennis?
I'd be impressed by the carrier that is able to reduce their latency to cable-like experiences, so sub 10 milliseconds.
Oh, yeah.
Not over a millimeter wave. I'm talking about in general. Get the latency down.
I think we get that with a standalone core. I think that becomes the norm. That's the standard.
But
sub 10,
let
5,
let me explain why that's important to people real quick. So we tech enthusiasts, we get real wild by these high capacity connections, 300, 400 megabits per second. But that's kind of like having a dump truck and saying how much weight it can carry, right? The ping time is your speed limit on the highway, okay? And the fact of the matter is a lot of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis are much more sensitive to latency and consistency of said latency, whether that be gaming, your audio calls that use very little data, insert real-time application for work. Maybe you're in a tough spot and you need to, I don't know, VPN to something and do something over the way, and you're like remoting into your computer and clicking. You want it to be snappy, responsive. Web pages, latency affects how quickly your web page is going to load.
It's part of your experience, right?
It's a big part of your experience, and it's something that's honestly not looked at very commonly. Also worth mentioning is that a lot of the newer devices that are going to be connecting that 5G is intended for aren't necessarily devices that use a lot of capacity. Your smartwatch doesn't need a lot of capacity. Your smart thermostat that might connect to 5G for whatever reason doesn't need a lot of capacity. Your home security system that uses a backup connection doesn't need a lot of capacity. Cares about latency, though.
All right, so we got a super chat from Mark Hoyle. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for that super chat. No comment or question. You just wanted to put that out there. So we appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for all that you do and supporting us here on the channel. And we're glad to have you, man. And thanks for being a part of the community.
Can we address Anthony's comment real quick just so people are aware?
Let's go ahead and get Anthony's up there. Okay.
So, Anthony, unfortunately, I'm sorry if you didn't see it, but come December, we've already effectively at Los Mobile stopped selling the home internet product, or the dedicated hotspots that were being used for home internet. And effective December 29th, all existing customers that have the dedicated hotspots are going to be terminated by AT&T. We've already successfully, Sneed has been a big help, refunded a lot of people that we couldn't fulfill the orders to, and we've been actively on the back end for customers that had billing stop the reoccurring bills so they can enjoy like the full cycle. But unfortunately, we're not able to offer the dedicated hotspots anymore. And I recommend visiting the website, which is lowestmobileusa.com, to find out more behind why we had to make those changes.
And to kind of follow up on this, Anthony, I'm guessing you probably haven't seen any of my recent videos over the last week or so. I've gone ahead and become a fiber customer for AT&T. So as of right now, I'm using the 1 gig symmetrical plan from AT&T Fiber, and I've got a really, really nice experience thus far. It's been great. It's very fast. It's very reliable. It hasn't gone down. It's been awesome. So I went from a decent experience, a decent option, something that gave me something better than Cox residual garbage can residue trash. I went from that to something usable to now something game-changing in my experience. I have to say it, having the absolutely tremendous amount of capacity on the uplink has changed my ability to upload content. I'm absolutely fearless now in uploading 4K 60 frames HDR content. I was not doing that before. I was doing everything in full HD, right? I was doing 1080p, which was fine, but people were asking me for 4K content, Dennis. They were literally asking me for 4K. And my reservation was, this is going to be hard to upload. And even under the ideal conditions, when I was running Los Mobile and getting about 30 to 35 megs up, it was taking me several minutes to upload, sometimes 20 minutes. Once those 4K HDR 60 frame videos go over 5 minutes in length, you're literally talking about 10 gig files.
Oh, Sneed. I love how you were like several minutes, 20 minutes. Dude, back when I had Comcast, when I would do like big backups to my Google Drive, my limited Google Drive, take a guess how long it would take.
Couple hours?
Days.
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 What connection were you on? Coax?
Yeah, it was coax.
But your uplink was probably, what, 10, 20 megs?
I had 35 meg upload for a while there, then dropped down to 10. 10, sometimes big files, like maybe 400 gigabytes in size, might take like 5 days.
Dennis, there you go for Mill, dog. Verizon testing C-band and millimeter wave in the Berg, dog.
I've tested millimeter wave. That's what made me change my tune a little bit on it. There was actually a spontaneous couple things of live streams on the Best Phone Plans channel. Not necessarily the best quality, but it was definitely a lot of fun to do.
I think what we're going to do Sunday, Michael, is we'll probably do either this Sunday or maybe midweek next week, either Wednesday or Thursday, because I'll be off of work for the season. We're going to have winter break. What I could do is I'm going to do a little bit of research on this whole iSIM, eSIM situation. I would love to make that a topic on the Patreon podcast. I'll invite Dennis. We'll do a little bit of homework and some research on this. I'll get the Bearded Dragon on. We'll see who else can join, but that would be an interesting show, something to discuss, because honestly, I don't know much.
I mean,
Dennis, I got you the address. You ready?
Oh, you're not just going to type it to me? Okay.
I'll put it in the private. I'm just letting you know. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Dude, this is awesome. Big shout out to Joe, sent over the address, and we might get Dennis going here. Let's see it looks like a rooftop site, dude. Wow. Okay.
Well, while you're typing that in, I just wanted to give a TLDR real quick on integrated versus eSIM. The TLDR is just basically that because it's a feature that's straight up baked into the Qualcomm modem chipset, and because it's a set standard, it's basically going to be something that's going to have to be enforced. Like, that actually has to be used. Holy crap. Do you have a zip code on that, Sneak? Because if so, it might be really close to where I live.
Yeah, do you need me to put that in the private?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm about to Google Maps it real quick because I actually think I think it's really close to my office.
Yeah, I got you, dog. It's not letting me go into the... Oh, there it is. Okay.
Is it this zip code that I'm about to type to you?
There it is.
It is. Oh my god.
Bruh,
dude.
If I showed you the site, you'd probably know the building.
Dude, it's so close to the airport. Oh, dude, it's right by Ross Park Mall.
Yeah. I can see the gear. It's 100% confirmed Ericsson C-band.
Okay, yeah, it's not as close as I thought it, but it's definitely close, and it's in a place that's kind of easy to get to because I know where that is.
Can you make it happen tonight, Dennis?
Oh, no. Not tonight. Not tonight.
Dennis, listen. I will send you a bag of Zarg nuts if you will go and do it tonight.
What are Zarg nuts? I'm sorry.
I don't know, dude. It was from freaking Guardians of the Galaxy, dog. You remember when Bautista was eating the Zarg nuts, just sitting there, standing on the side?
Not really, but I'm gonna tell you why I'm not gonna do it tonight. One is because that would require me to actually do some laundry so I can get properly dressed. And,
wait, so Dennis, you don't want to have to wear pants, is what you're telling me?
And two is because there are 2 roads along the way for me to get there that are currently closed.
Oh, damn.
So I'm not trying to take that trip. I mean, I guess I could take an alternate route on like 79 to get there and then bounce back, but that would be like basically, it's a trip that normally should only take about 30 minutes, and because of the road closures and other factors, it would probably take close to an hour to get there, and I'm not trying.
So I'm excited, Dennis, to let you know I just got the new Verizon LTE Home Internet.
Ooh.
Just got it. So in case for those of you that don't know out there, the new LTE Home Internet gateway is C-band ready. It's a non-millimeter wave gateway. It's only sub 6 gigahertz, all things. So if you order the LTE Home Internet, That new hardware is also C-band enabled, so when it goes live, you will connect to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up. I'm going to do a little bit of testing, and then it's going straight to my brother's house. My brother got a new crib.
The one that's from my area that we talked about, or
No, he's actually looking at T-Mobile Home Internet,
which we already agreed that
it could work out for him, right?
Well, the only reason he would do is to cut costs, is what we agreed on.
Yeah, because the other offer, which the company,
Armstrong,
is a very regional, small provider that offer. I think his experience is fine, but it would only be the fact that it would simplify his billing process, and that his wireless and then home internet would be paired.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
Save about $30, $35.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Armstrong, but I will say there's 3 things that go in their credit. 1, their service is fine. 2,
that's my impression that I got from him. True.
2, they're 100% privately owned and family owned company still to this day. So no offshore customer support. And 3, they did recently improve a lot from speed offerings and pricing and data cap allotments. Like, they improved across the board and had a pretty solid response to the COVID pandemic. So props to them. They're no longer the company that used to charge like $300 for a 50 by 5 megabit per second connection.
Oh,
so kudos.
terrible. Oh.
So kudos to them.
Bro, I've been watching Cox losing customers every day. I see AT&T trucks in my neighborhood connecting fiber lines.
Plus, where your brother is, I know for a fact that Armstrong is actively building out fiber to the home where your brother is.
Yeah, and he's in a newly developed area. Like, his home is very new.
Also, Armstrong's not as small as you think they are, Sneed. They're actually in parts of Ohio, believe it or not.
Yeah, but it would have to be southeast, right?
Yeah, it'd be east for you, west for me. Yes.
It would just be right outside of Pittsburgh, I'm assuming.
No, they actually don't service around Pittsburgh. It's more like are you familiar with like Youngstown area?
Of course.
Okay. It's like more closer towards like the Youngstown direction. And
so
honestly,
what's
actually
the surrounding areas? You got like Warren, Ohio and stuff like that.
Well, they're headquartered out in Butler. Their headquarters is in Butler, if you're familiar with Butler.
Okay.
And then they service like Lawrence County, certain parts of Allegheny County, Beaver County. I don't know all the counties, but the point was that they're actually bigger. They're actually in like, I think like 4 or 5 states, believe it or not. Although in some of those areas, they're still offering DSL-based service, ironically enough. So yeah, they're an interesting company. I wouldn't recommend them as someone's first choice because they are still expensive, and places that have them are truly going to be monopoly areas because they basically go to the places that no one else wanted to go to. But
sure, yeah. If
they're your only option, there are definitely far worse out there, and I can name 5 off the top of my head with ease, one of which would be Frontier DSL. So not as bad as it could be.
Yeah, Frontier. I hear a lot of people speak about Frontier in disdain. It's not very flattering. It's not in a very positive light.
As we talked about too, if your brother does get T-Mobile Home Internet, like I said, there's only like one cell site that's covering like where he's at. So if it goes down for any reason, he's just SOL. Because I think you see he's also using his cell phone service with T-Mobile. So like now he has no home internet and no cell phone service. Kind of a tough spot to be in.
I think the more concerning part is the fact that not many of T-Mobile sites have backup power.
Correct. That's also
so that's
issue.
My bigger concern because, power goes out in the CLE a couple times a year. And unfortunately, and this is 100% true, my wife saw it happen in front of our eyes. The only carriers that kept on kicking was
AT&T and Verizon.
AT&T, and before that, Sprint would keep working too because the Sprint site that was serving my home at the time, I had a SIM. I had it on an iPhone XS Max.
So I want to
send me a SIM, and they had backup power. It was working.
I want to answer Poppy's most recent comment real quick. Frontier Fiber is actually just Fios fiber that Frontier acquired. They literally have
Yeah.
not touched it since it was deployed. And I don't think Frontier
Yeah,
might
but
have
not
did
even
one.
Verizon, Dennis, has upgraded their Fios.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to share, but I know that basically it's a matter of I'm unlucky because I'm in one of the original markets, but I do know that they actually have been apparently upgrading in certain areas. Like Shime reached out to me and said IPv6 is being supported in his area, so that's nice.
Yeah, he's in the New York market.
And
I can
then,
tell you that my family in Pittsburgh has Fios and they love it. They've had Fios for TV. They've had Fios for the home internet. The fiber gives them gigabit speed almost. What is it, like 960 by 960?
yeah, but remember too, like it's a matter of knowing what to look for and what your use case is. If your family doesn't know what to look for, like as a benchmark, right? Like I've had the luck of living on Penn State campus and having an engineering lab that had 10 gig symmetrical and knowing what the beauties of that looks like, right? I've also had the misery of having like legit dial up too. So like I have a wide range of perspective, and I also know how things should be.
Yeah, but
And
Dennis,
I doubt,
the gigabit connection symmetrical, there's nobody that's not good enough for.
it's not about the gig symmetrical that causes problems.
It's got to be the uptime. It's got to be the reliability.
The uptime, the ping times. Like I talked about the peering agreements. Like I doubt your family is going to be doing a trace route to see what the hops are on a server when they.
No, they wouldn't.
you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
There's different tolerances to things that are acceptable to people, and like you give my dad a DSL connection, and all he's doing is emailing. He's not going to do the difference between that and 300 meg, right?
Well, at this point, Dennis, like I'm talking about 6, 7, 8 years ago, even. So this is before people were cutting the cord. Everybody was still like, I would say 60 or 70% of TV viewers were watching over traditional TV, over boxes, right? It wasn't probably up until about 5 years ago people were really cutting the cord. So even the stress that we're seeing now for private networks, personal networks, and mobile networks for video, I mean, that's relatively new, right?
Yeah, I mean, TLDR, Fios is like fiber is fiber. Like even a poor quality fiber connection is generally going to still be better than a lot of options out there. My gripes with Fios tend to stick more along the lines of peering agreements, the fact that they blacklist IP addresses instead of taking a scalpel approach, and as we talked about, uptime. Oh, and feature support. The fact that they don't support IPv6 by now is kind of ridiculous because
I can't believe it.
Because that's been supported since 2013 because that was part of the DOCSIS 3.0 specification.
I'm surprised. I didn't know that was an issue. I know it's an issue on the T-Mobile home internet too also.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, Sneed, you're a good example of what I talk about with ping times. When you first got your AT&T Uverse installed, you were seeing some pretty interesting pings up in the 20s and 30s, I think, in your video.
Yeah, I was surprised and disappointed, actually.
So, great example of just because it's fiber doesn't mean it's necessarily perfect. So,
no, it's definitely not perfect.
Totally it's a great example of that. And everything is location dependent. And like I said, I'm sure your family loves Fios, and I'm sure it's treating them well. In fact, they could have a perfect setup for all intents and purposes that I know. But all I can speak about is my personal experiences with it. And unfortunately, Verizon doesn't currently, in my current eyes, come up to snuff. They're definitely better than Comcast just because I want an upload that's not in the low teens. But and because they don't have a data cap, which someone shared that they extended the data cap to 2023, which is good. But anyway, TLDR, fiber is great. It's the gold standard. I really hope Verizon actually doesn't forget about poor Pittsburgh market, which from what I've heard is not the case. And I'm hoping that what I've heard from Little Birdies is true coming next year, because if it's the case, it's going to start looking a lot more like your AT&T Uverse, apparently, in terms of offerings.
I mean, pricing matters. You know, that's
Verizon's more expensive than AT&T.
Right. Like that's another thing that we also got to consider. The first thing people ask about every service, okay, what's the price? And then from the price is where they then pivot to other things.
Right.
All right, well, what am I getting? What's my speed at this price? What are my expectations? Then you start looking at reviews and you start asking people around, hey, who's your provider? Do you use this? What's your experience on that service? Are they including the router? Are they including the gateway? Do they have mesh systems available? Somebody who's I think is a little more technologically inclined, like yourself, you would ask more about how does it perform under a VPN? What's the IPv6 situation? How are the peer agreements in this area or with this service? Those are next level questions that most people don't know. So really all they look for is they start with the price and then they look at the speed, and latency becomes this afterthought of, what do you think, Dennis? 25% people think about latency on their network?
Honestly, I feel like because gaming has become mainstream, ping times is the number one thing people think about.
But what is the number? What is the magical number? Is it under 30 to be an acceptable ping for a home network?
For a home network?
Yeah.
No.
Is it under 20?
I would say under 15. Under
Right.
15. And here's why, Sneed. Because if your ping time's not under 15 when you're going to like legit the first hop, then by the time you actually reach your destination, it's probably going to be up in like the low 80s.
Because I'm getting like 18, 19 millisecond ping on my fiber.
Yeah, it's not good, man. I mean, that's just not good. Fiber, when you're running a speed test to your company's like main head end, should be sub like 4 milliseconds.
Yeah, I couldn't speak to it, but I mean, I've been pretty disappointed, relatively speaking. I'm trying to be patient. Like the service is new, they're still working on some things. Maybe there's stuff going on behind closed doors with their systems, and I'm hoping that this improves. But it's going to be something that I'm going to make a stink about if it doesn't change in the near future.
I mean, dude, I know you don't like big cable companies, but I have to say it for relativity. Comcast is able to get a 6 ping time.
I was never able to beat 19 millisecond on Cox.
Yeah, Comcast gets a 6 ping time, and when Fios is wanting to work proper, I'm able to get about 3 milliseconds, which is fantastic. But when Fios is congested and being bad, it's like yours, 20 milliseconds, and it's rough.
Man, big shout out to MilDog. Thank you for that super chat. No comment, no question, just the super chat there. So we appreciate you, MilDog. Thanks for being a part of the community. Thanks for the support and the dono. We appreciate you very much, man. Thank you.
Also, Peter, we can't all have awesome municipal options like you, man.
I think when I test my my connection using the actual tool for testing the latency and not like Ookla or any of that, I get like 5 milliseconds.
When you're testing it to what? I'm sorry?
Like the actual like network testing tool, not an app.
Oh, gotcha. Understood.
Like a built-in program tool, and it gets like the worst I see is like 11 milliseconds. The best I see is 5. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 9. But the Ookla speed test app, it's like 19, 17, 21 sometimes.
I mean, you can manually select the like AT&T server in the Ookla speed.
Yeah, but even that doesn't change it though, Dennis. It's weird, man.
I don't know what to say, man. I mean, ping is one of those things. Like I said, it's based off distance to the server and the amount of hops that you have to get to that server. Like if I have to stop at 3 different locations before I can finally reach my end destination, then my ping time is going to be higher, right? And that goes into peering agreements, right? How direct is my path to that server that I'm trying to connect to? But we're getting into a rabbit hole.
I'm doing a speed test to a Puerto Rico, AT&T Mobility Puerto Rico, 87 millisecond ping.
Right, because it's super far away from you, and you're probably hopping off of AT&T's internal backbone and onto some other providers' connection, whoever they have the peering agreement with, to ultimately reach your end destination.
Let's try. I think I just saw an AT&T one.
Like if you ran a speed test,
AT&T Raleigh, North Carolina, it wants to default to.
Okay, I'm gonna guess that you get 13 milliseconds. To
23.
Ooh.
23. Dave B says, Dennis, I'm happy with 50 millisecond ping from the T-Mobile home internet.
I mean, yeah, that's a different bar to set. I mean, it's wireless. It's probably connecting to LTE. I mean, I don't know.
I think he is on LTE. I think he typically connects to either band 71 or band 2.
There we go. I mean, it's all relative, but when people ask me, like, would I recommend T-Mobile Internet, I say no. Why do I say no? It's not because the speeds can't be necessarily good. It's because of the carrier grade NAT, the double NAT type for gamers, the ping times, the jitter, the variability in the ping. It's not just about having a high ping, but the fact that it's all over the place. Like, you can tolerate a higher ping if it's consistently at that higher number, but if it's rubber banding from like 20 to 100, it's going to be absolutely unusable. So packet loss is another factor too. Like, you want packet loss to be as close to 0 as possible.
Yeah, I don't typically see any packet loss.
You shouldn't.
Really. Yeah, I shouldn't. I don't see that from anything actually. Occasionally, like a mobile carrier will have some packet loss in a tough spot,
which will come from the fact that the signal's probably really weak and you're,
Yeah, right, or unstable or whatever. But most of the wired connections I do get some jitter occasionally, Dennis.
And that's inherent of wireless. I mean, that's why hardwiring.
No, even on my fiber.
Is it like less than a millisecond?
No.
Ooh.
There's like randomly, like sometimes it's a millisecond, and then sometimes it's like hundreds.
Ooh no, that's real bad. That's
and those are usually the times where the latency spike too. Like, it's like a weird glitch that happens with the network. It's not often, but I have seen it a couple of times.
Yeah, generally speaking, you want your jitter to be less than 3 milliseconds. Like, that's an acceptable jitter.
I don't want any jitter if it's not 1 millisecond.
I mean, there's always going to be fluctuations in ping time. It's just a matter of fact. Like, there's going to be some variability in your latency. And the reason for that, by the way, Sneed, is because you might have something else that goes on the network. Like, I'm just going to use an example. Let's just say you're playing a video game and your wife hops on Netflix real quick. That would be a moment in time where there's going to be a slight spike in your jitter because something else just happened.
Yeah, it just jumped on the train.
Yeah. But what do you want to talk about now, man?
I don't know, Dennis. I feel pretty good about the C-band thing. We covered that pretty good. We discussed the home networking a little bit. Kind of like the direction of my channel now that I can pretty much do everything in 4K. So I'll be doing a lot of that. Me and the Bearded Dragon, probably looking at upgrading some hardware. I might be getting a 4K camera now.
Ooh.
We'll see what happens there. Just to, I've always tried to improve the channel content. Every step of the way I started with I started my channel with a Chromebook and a Google Pixel 2 XL. And then that's how I was creating my content. And then, I upgraded to a laptop, and then I upgraded to like a business grade desktop, couple monitors, dedicated webcam. I tried to get a high quality webcam. I bought a bunch of devices. I bought iPhones and Galaxies. I bought dedicated audio equipment. I've always tried to improve the channel, always reinvested in the content. So now that I've got the bandwidth to do it, I want to do the same thing with the video, because I have the tools to the recording. It's really, I've just been hesitant because of the size of the files. It's been really intimidating to this point. So I feel like I can pretty much do whatever I want now. You saw the videos I did with Yasmin, my daughter.
I did. I was especially impressed by the range of your Wi-Fi coverage when you did your yard test.
Yeah.
And I think that was with the default AT&T gateway, right? Or no?
Yeah, and it's in the lower level.
Yeah, I was incredibly impressed by that. Companies have come a long way with the provided equipment they're providing, which is a lot to say considering where they started. So that was impressive to see. I guess I'll ask you a question. Now that you've experienced the glories of fiber, is there a world for you to actually go back to using a wireless solution as your primary option?
Big shout out to MS. Thank you, man. Appreciate the super chat. He's thankful for the nation and Los Mobile. Merry Christmas, man. Thank you. Happy holidays to you as well, and Merry Christmas. Um, man, look, when you have fiber, you have the pinnacle in performance, right? You have bandwidth for days, capacity for weeks. You're not going to have an issue with speed. You really shouldn't be having an issue with any type of performance metric. The only way I'm going to a fixed wireless solution is if I don't have a fiber option. There are some instances where I think fixed wireless access can be better than coaxial. I can create that scenario, Dennis.
I know you've had personal experiences, and I respect that, and obviously you know where I stand.
Well, here's where this ends up. In the ideal theoretical scenario, coax can be great. The problem is the companies are trash. That will impede the enjoyability and the experience for customers. If a customer has to overpay to get 30, 40, or 50 megabits up, that hurts the value proposition, Dennis. Because there are wireless options that can do more than 40 and 50 uplink.
I don't disagree with you from a pricing standpoint if we're looking at it from that metric. But if we're looking at it from here's what this tech is able to deliver versus this is what this tech is able to deliver, there's not a world where you'll win me over that tells me that the hardwired solution isn't better than the wireless solution. Excuse me.
Okay, so if we look at and big shout out to Alex M. Thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate it. The situation I'm building for you, here's a couple of situations where fixed wireless access will win. Situation 1, mmWave. That is a world that is better than coaxial right now. All right. Situation number 2, trash company with good coax, still not better than competitive company with a decent fixed wireless option. As long as the fixed wireless option is good enough. That's another situation where I could see that happening. Now, if cable treated their customers better and had dependable coaxial, then I actually compare them more like fiber. But we're still not in a world where the coaxial is doing much on uplink. So you're going to promise me on DOCSIS? I'm going to promise you on mmWave.
I'm not promising you on DOCSIS. I'm looking at, even if we take today, what is available on cable today versus mmWave even, I would still pick the cable connection. And here's why, Sneed. All fixed wireless solutions still have core problems that need to be resolved, the biggest of which is carrier grade NAT. And the way you fix that is going IPv6. Everything needs to support IPv6. The reason why carrier grade NAT exists is because there's a limited pool of IPv4 addresses that are being allocated for wireless use. If we go to IPv6, there should basically be an infinite amount of IP addresses that could be assigned to home customers. Unfortunately, we live in a world where IPv6 isn't necessarily being adopted by all the ISPs, and we live in a world where it's not necessarily being utilized by every single service that's out there. Some of them still fall back to an IPv4 connection.
Dennis, I swear to you, you are a friend, a cohort, a respected peer. I have such a foul taste in my mouth from cable companies. I would rather throw my money at Starlink than throw it to any cable operator in the Cleveland market. I've had every run-in with WOW, Spectrum, Cox, AT&T DSL.
Cox is the worst.
I've had them all,
bro.
dog. I would rather have Starlink than all of them. That's just how those companies are to me, and it's hard to shake.
I can respect that because you know how I feel about Verizon, so I can empathize and understand that.
You only have Verizon because you kind of have to.
But that was the point I was going to get at. Even though I hate Verizon Wireless to my core because of the previous experiences that I had with them, it didn't stop me from forking over money for Fios and fiber, because fiber is good, right? In that same vein, and to be fair here, Sneed, I just want to be clear. I've never had the experiences that you've had with big cable. Just to put that out there, I didn't have the experience that you had. But even if I had those same experiences I had with like Verizon Wireless with cable company, if they were able to deliver the advertised product, which Comcast did, in fact exceeded it, and it was reasonably priced, and by reasonable I mean say less than $80, because I basically pay $80 for gig, then I have no reason not to want to pick that over the millimeter wave option, even if the millimeter wave option is $50. Because for me, the fixed wireless option doesn't meet the more extreme use cases that I might throw at it, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be targeted at me, but it still doesn't. It just doesn't have the features that need to be supported for someone like me, or for that matter, medium-sized businesses or better.
So Dennis, you would never give up fiber if, okay, so let's say fiber tapped out at 1 gig by 1 gig from a company A. So company A serves Dennis's house. 1 gig by 1 gig is the best they could do. It's $90 a month. Verizon 5G Home comes to your complex, your home, whatever. $50 a month, because you got the wireless too. Auto pay, $50 a month. You're not going to consider the 5G Home from Verizon if it's doing 400 up and 2 gigabits down?
But the speed isn't the issue, Sneed. It's the
okay, so it's something else. Okay.
Yeah, like and also the only way I would consider the more affordable option is if I for some reason fell into a financial situation where it was like have some internet or no internet.
Because think about that scenario I gave you, Dennis, right? It's like 90 versus 50.
I would still pay the 90. Like I would, the first thing I'd probably do is call company A and be like, hey, can I get a reduced speed like 500 by 500 for cheaper? That's probably my first intuition. Like
try to get it down to 80
or less. Yeah, I'd probably talk to them. Like I'd try to get some type of promo or something.
What's up, Big Tim?
I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that I am well aware that I fall in a demographic that is not the average use case. I care about premium, like I care about things that people don't necessarily need to care about in their day-to-day, and that's fine.
Yeah, but it's a good angle for us to think about, right? Like there's different strokes for different folks, and people need certain things. You know, when you talk about peer agreements, that never crossed my mind. When you brought up the IPv6, never crossed my mind, because what you're connecting to and what your tasks are require those considerations. My considerations at my home are 2 or 3 4K TVs, a desktop, a laptop, an iPad, a handful of phones, and an Xbox. So for me, I need downlink capacity and uplink capacity. Never crossed my mind about IPv6. Never crossed my mind about peer agreements, right? Those things are sensitive in your world. They're non-negotiables, right?
I mean, IPv6 is but the peer agreements is definitely a non-negotiable. Like that's very upsetting to me because that impacts me on every task.
Carlos, where you at with this, dog? You've been in on this conversation for a few minutes.
What up? What up?
I said you've been in on this conversation for a few minutes. You just jumped in. Any thoughts or opinions on what we've been discussing?
Bro, you know me, I don't care. As long as we got a connection, baby. But but regardless, bro, honestly, I know the cable providers are ass, bro, and it is what it is, you know. But if the technology still has more to advance than and where they can't get fiber out to people, then I'm with Dennis on it. I would like to see it, even though it's still DOCSIS 4.0 or 3.1, whatever. It's still, you know, if you can get me symmetrical gig up and down at the same time, why not? Give it to me, bro. I don't care if it's through coaxial. You know, we'll just have to deal with the rest later.
I guess something I want to paint, Sneed, and put a picture on is in competitive markets, right? Because like your experience with Cox, right, was in a non-competitive market. And to be fair, to be a little bit more fair, I think it's fair to say that any company, not just a cable company, any company that gets put in a situation where they have that much dominance and influence in a market is going to act that way. I don't think it's too much of a stretch for me to say something along those lines. And I also want to say that I also think it would be fair to say that in the way things are going, we have seen companies like cable companies show that they know how to change things to stay competitive. Like if a fiber company starts to come into Google Fiber, right? In markets where that started to happen, we saw speeds increase and prices decrease almost overnight. Snap of the fingers.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also worth saying as well is that part of the reason why we're in this situation to begin with is a failure of regulations in our lawmakers as well as localized communities. Cable companies only get away with some of these things that happen because we, the people, didn't put an importance on it. Like, I'm just going to use an example. I know you don't like me saying this, but let's look at HOA communities, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times in HOA communities, you'll find that there's only one provider in that HOA. Not because Verizon wasn't willing to come out there, or not because Comcast wasn't willing to come out there, but because the HOA said, no, we care more about how our lawns look than letting you put these ugly green pedestals so you can provide service in my neighborhood. It's just a fact of the truth. In the same way, there's people that are blocking millimeter wave sites, blocking small cell deployments because it doesn't look pretty, right?
Right.
There are trade-offs, and the reason why some of this stuff happened is because, and I know it feels bad saying this because I'm pro-consumer, but part of the reasons why this happened is because there are certain consumers out there that do things that prevent progress from happening when it comes from a connectivity standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, those are all, that's all realistic situations and circumstances. I mean, those are pretty regular for a lot of people. You know, I mean, I have an HOA, but I mean, they've allowed any company that wants to come in and compete to do so, right? AT&T's been here with DSL. Cox came in shortly after them. Cox is trash. AT&T was trash. Now they have fiber. You know, they invested.
Yeah, you can't get satellite in my HOA. No satellites allowed. Period. So that eliminates.
We can have satellites.
Yeah, in my community, no satellites allowed. So that eliminates every satellite option. Starlink gone, Dish gone, whatever you want to call it, gone. Right. Also, something else I just want to bring up real quick that's worth mentioning is a better example of what I'm getting at would be like apartment complexes, because that's really where it's the worst. I've talked about this before, like how it pissed me off, but a lot of times what you'll find is that these companies will reach out to landlords to work out an exclusive access deal with these set of properties, right? Now, regulators caught on to like what was happening, but cable companies found a loophole. Basically, they run the lines, sell the lines off to the landowner of that property, and then they just lease access to those lines, and the landlord just doesn't give access to anybody else to come into the property. And so you fall into a situation where Comcast becomes the only one that services this apartment complex, and then Fios is the only one that services this apartment complex, and you get in these terrible situations as far as pricing. Like Comcast charges different pricing literally on a house by house almost basis. And the same thing is and Verizon and every other telco company for the most part is just as guilty of this. Like, if you fall in one of those situations where you live in one of those Verizon only service apartment complexes, I promise you're not getting the pricing that I'm paying. You're paying like $10, $15, maybe $20 more than what I pay, and oftentimes for worse service too, because a lot of times those little apartment complexes don't necessarily get to see all the pretty little upgrades that the rest of the free market / community gets to see. So it's a complex issue that ultimately sucks. You've heard Socialist Dennis come on before and talk about what he would do, where I'd have it where every last mile connection is fiber, and that fiber has to be shared by all ISPs, that you just plug it into your main backbone at the head end. Like, that would be the most efficient way to solve things and basically remove people out of the equation from preventing said progress from happening. But we don't live in a country where I think that's going to be supported anytime soon.
See, bro, this is why I like living where I live, bro. HOAs don't do that out here, bro. You could have whatever you want, whatever
here,
you
it just
want.
depends on the HOA. Like, every single one is different lows. You know, it just depends.
Bro, good old love to the West Coast, baby. That's why.
I'm fortunate enough to live in an HOA that at least is somewhat young and understands that connectivity is important. So at least we have two options. Like, I'm not complaining. Like, I got Fios and Comcast. That's better than that. The fact that I have two options is better than like 2/3 of Americans. Like,
well, when you have one option, you don't have an option.
Exactly.
And when you have two options, that's not really options. That's just one or the other.
Well,
Options is when you have like 3, 4, 5 choices.
a lot of times when we talk about two options too, and you can't see my fingers, but it's usually like cable and DSL, which means you are picking cable.
Yeah.
So I'm saying I actually have two options because I have fiber and cable. Those are actually legitimately two options. And technically speaking, I do have T-Mobile Internet because they do market the crap out of my area, but they got better chance of pigs flying before anybody that I know in this area would pick them based off the performance that they get.
Well, Dennis, we got one more thing to talk about, and we got Carlos. He's the man of the hour for this one. Carlos, get your engine revved up, dog. Get hot on this one, dog. Dish Network, the wireless network, their mobile network, is now being tested by firms. We actually have feedback on Dish's performance in the Vegas market. You, sir, are on the email list. You'll know when they go live with Project Genesis. I know you're going to work within your close contacts to see if you can somehow, some way get early access to the network and test it. But we've got information that actually dropped yesterday, and they said that they were underwhelmed by the Dish network. And they said that they were not impressed by the speeds. There wasn't much capacity. They did disclose a few details about the testing, but they didn't go into, any type of extensive explanations. But basically what they said was the 5G network that is being offered by Dish is not that fast. It's sluggish compared to, say, that of T-Mobile. Now, the one thing we have to make sure we keep in mind, T-Mobile has 100 megahertz dedicated channel bandwidth on N41. As of right now, there is no 5G carrier aggregation, from what I understand, on the network itself for Dish, with the exception of possibly a low band, mid band, which would be what, 10, 15, maybe 20 megahertz of N71. And then it'd probably be something like a 20 or 25 megahertz of AWS, right? So we're talking about N71, N66, or N70, right? And who's got the devices for that anyways to get the N70? So like we're looking at this experience, and they're saying it's a combination of, well, it doesn't have this wide bandwidth, we're not seeing deep channels, it's not that fast, but they are saying that the coverage is there, Carlos. They said that there's well over 100 sites, and I don't know how that compares to T-Mobile. I don't know how that compares to Verizon.
100 sites, bro. There's more sites than that, bro. What do they do? All test only the 3 major freeways, the outskirts? Get out of here, bro.
I don't know. They said that there's at least 100. That's what he said.
There's a map too. If you want to share the screen on it, he has like a 3D map that shows like the path he took. You might be able to recognize it.
But I think at this point, Dennis, the question becomes this: can we get Carlos out there to track that map and see what they saw? You know what I'm saying? Like looking up at the towers. I mean, nobody knows Vegas, the city lines, like Los does. So whoever this testing firm was, Carlos, you remember it was Signal
Research Group or something like that.
And Carlos, we did our homework on that organization. Their analysis of mobile networking is very strong. I didn't see like a historical trend of them being biased or them being, unfair or them being overly forgiving towards one carrier or anything like that. No, I want to know their process. What did they drive? How did they assess and evaluate the network? And we didn't get any data. We didn't get average speeds. We didn't get average latency.
Well, I don't think they were able to. I don't think they were actually able to do actual speed tests. From my understanding from the test, they were provided, or they were using some type of equipment. I don't know if it was provided by Dish or what, but basically the equipment they were using, from my understanding, was basically just measuring the RSRP, the actual connection rate, like you know how on Wi-Fi, Sneed, when you connect to Wi-Fi, you can go into your settings and see what the actual transfer rate is that you're connecting on.
Yeah.
From my understanding, it was that, the RSRP, the bands that were being connected to, and a few other little details like that. And that was basically the gist of it, from my understanding.
Go ahead, Los. Get in here.
Bro, all they did was drive the three freeways. That's all they drove. Whoop de fucking do, bro. Like, you know, there's more to it, bro. They said that the west side doesn't even have enough coverage when all the towers I've been catching are on the west side. Like, get out of here, bro. Like, this, they all they did was just drive some freeways, and that's it, bro. Anybody can do that, bro. And of course, you're gonna get your values based off that, and that's it.
Well, I said this with Sneed behind the scenes, and it's basically this. A local person that lives there is going to obviously have a better understanding of what coverage looks like with respective carriers than someone that's just doing a network test. That being said, and again, I don't live there, but I feel like the results that they're seeing make a little bit of sense if we look at the history of every other carrier, right? Like, Dish is a newcomer with no experience deploying wireless networks. I feel like it's safe to say that, of course, they're going to have growing pains, especially when it's really in beta still. Like, it's not optimized. Like, I feel like these assessments is good feedback, and it's probably got some kernel of truth to it that Dish can probably work on to improve further. I don't think Dish is really in a position to be even going full on lifetime. I mean, they've been deploying the network for maybe a year at best. Does that sound about right?
Like, they started their build in August,
so even less than a year.
Carlos, what would you say?
I started seeing stuff go up, like, I think it was August, and they were done by, no, I saw it May.
Weren't they mostly done in October?
June or July, and they were done in like late October, yeah.
So less than a year.
But the thing that's encouraging is that the coverage seemed to be there. I think the trouble that they spoke to was the capacity. Because if you think about it, like, they don't own any plethora of spectrum. They don't have a portfolio like T-Mobile. Like, look at what T-Mobile just did. They literally chopped up, swallowed, and spit out Sprint. You know, and they literally took 200 megahertz of spectrum from them. Right? They took 160 of N41 of the 2.5. They took, what is it, like 25 PCS?
Yeah, they took the extension of PCS.
Yeah, they took the PCS, and they also got they have 800, but Dish can take that, but I don't think they want it. So, like, that is a ton of spectrum. So comparing Dish to T-Mobile spectrum portfolio that's like comparing a year 1 teacher to a year 25 teacher.
I mean, Sneed, I said this, I feel like it's almost a year ago at this point when we had a conversation about Dish, but you asked me to do a prediction, I believe, of where I saw Dish in the market or something along these lines. It was like the genesis of the question. And I should have told you that I don't think Dish is in a position to be an actual major competitor. Like, I told you that, like, Dish is probably going to be more regional based. Like, areas where they have access to decent spectrum, they might be pretty regional based.
Yeah, but they have national service agreements.
They might have that, and they have the great roaming on AT&T, which is fantastic.
That's what I'm speaking to. Like, they have 2 carriers in their back pocket.
Right, but T-Mobile is going to go away at some point. Like, it's going to be AT&T as their roaming, which is great. That's going to help them in a tremendous manner.
The AT&T access is 12 years.
Right, that's going to help them in a tremendous manner. But put simply, I don't realistically see them being able to be an actual national MNO. I can see them doing more of like a US Cellular-esque approach where they deploy it in certain places to offload the traffic and be cost efficient and everything else. And then for the rest, just roam on AT&T.
Yeah, but Dennis, they have requirements to hit 70% of the U.S. pops. And what is it? It's 2022. They have a year and 6 months to do it.
Which, if you do urban, you can hit that easy. New York gets you like, what, 11 million? How many people are in New York? I don't even know.
Well, it's by pops. So, like, the Cleveland pops is 4 million. Like, it's Cuyahoga County.
That's what I'm saying. So, yeah. Boom, there you go.
Yeah, like Pittsburgh's going to probably Pittsburgh with its main county, what would that be? Pittsburgh's main county.
Like, I don't know, 5 million, 6.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So each one of those markets, I mean, that's big pops.
Right. So that's
You
what
know,
I'm
if
saying.
they hit the top 50 PEAs, they're probably at 65% of the pops.
Right, which goes back to what I'm getting at is like they can meet that goal, right? But it doesn't mean they're an actual, in the true sense of the word, nationalized MNO, right? They're not going to have even Sprint level of coverage scalability anytime soon.
Well, actually, if you look at the structure of the agreements with the FCC, they're structured by spectrum. I don't know if you knew that.
Elaborate a little bit more for me.
So you're aware of what Dish has in terms of spectrum, right? Like they have 600 megahertz, they have some 700, they have some AWS 4.
It's all not playing nice though, from my understanding. Like not all of it can be easily.
Well, no. This is what I mean about what they have to do. Each one of those types of spectrum has a date requirement to be deployed with a certain percentage of the population. So, like when we talk about the agreement that's there, Dish has a percentage of the U.S. they have to cover with 600 megahertz. They have a certain amount for the AWS. There's a time requirement for each type of spectrum they have. A lot of people don't know that. So they have to deploy it. Now, here's the thing, and this is where I think this is coming into play. I think that it doesn't look like T-Mobile's going to play nice, and it looks like T-Mobile would rather see Dish die, but it looks like AT&T is going to play nice. And that could mean that maybe Dish is facilitated by AT&T. AT&T upgrades tower sites, upgrades gear, and can broadcast their licenses. On their licenses.
I'm still sticking with my guns prediction from way back when. I don't see Dish actually surviving. I honestly, I think a more likely scenario of what happens is this. Dish will deploy to not get in trouble with the FCC. Actually, they might even just determine that it's easier just to pay the fines. And they look to basically sell off to someone else because I don't think they have the money or the skills to actually deploy a full-blown network. I think it's more to take on than Charlie was originally encountering. He might have went in there with best intentions, right? But as they say, hell is paid with good intentions. I don't think they can execute on what they need to do. It's a big pill to tackle. And honestly, based off where we're at this point, I mean, I feel like enough time has gone on to say that I don't feel like Dish has done much of anything. I know they deployed in Vegas, but we don't know anything about what their plans look like. They've eaten up a few MVNOs, but nothing at the and I won't discredit that they worked out a fantastic deal with AT&T. That's very incredible, but nothing that they're doing merits great MNO. If we're talking about as an MVNO company, wow, Dish, good stuff. I will give you props for what you've done with these agreements. They're pretty incredible agreements. But if we're talking about being an MNO, they're not even 10% of the way there in my eyes.
Hey, John, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you. Yeah, audio only on a video streaming site.
That was Sneed's call. I have the video. I could go. I got the video right here.
So could I. But I mean, here's the thing, dog. This is the most interactive platform, I think, out of all apps. Would you say that YouTube and the comments and the live chats is more interactive than Instagram?
Oh, for sure.
More interactive than TikTok?
Oh,
more interactive than Facebook?
I don't know about TikTok, but yes, more interactive than Facebook.
So, I mean, even if it's audio only, I mean, I think the interaction is solid, right?
Hey, when I wanted to start the podcast originally, we were audio only at the best phone plans because I didn't want to show my face. I was too scared to be honest.
You overcome, man. That's it's just something you get used to. Big shout out to John, my brother. Thank you for the super chat, man.
I'm getting a lot of Dennis is a right in the chat. I know you're the optimist.
A lot of people doubt Dish. I mean, if you're a realist, if you are a show me and prove it, your process is correct. I just choose to be more optimistic about it because they have enough naysayers. I don't need to be another one, right?
Yeah,
Wouldn't you say that they've got millions that are
bro. But
stacking it up
the
against
thing
them?
is that nobody's taking into account all the contracts that enterprise contracts that they're landing, and
Well,
they
Carlos is
are
right.
actually
Yeah,
putting money into the network.
listen,
They're
it's gonna be
actually
the
donating
uniqueness
money
about the
into the
company,
network,
listen.
right?
and
My consider
they're the only ones that have a real standalone.
my
They will be the only
consideration
ones that have real.
my consideration for Dish has gotten a little bit later than when I initially started because I don't want to beat down considering everything that happened with the T-Mobile shenanigans. I take that into consideration, and I do take into consideration the back end contracts that are happening, right? But although contracts are good to me are still good intentions, I still haven't seen anything that has been proper execution outside of what this article that recently came out with, right? This little piece of article, right? And everything that my gut has been telling me up to this point has still been pretty on point with where it's at. Like, we've taken a few little like nice turns where it's like a congratulations to Dish, right? Like, I'm not trying to discredit some of the small steps that we're taking, and we're going in a right direction. We're making progress, but there's a timetable on this, right? And Dish is not meeting my timetable of what I need to see to be proven wrong, is basically where I'm at on it. Like, I want Dish to do well because I believe that having a fourth choice is important in the US, because look at what Canada looks like where they have three choices. Prices are ridiculous. Plans suck. So I definitely believe we need competition. I understand what you're saying, Carlos, that they do have a true standalone 5G network. That's a blessing and a curse for them, but it's true. They're going to have a standalone 5G network. Like, that's fantastic, but it doesn't mean anything either, too. Like, just because they have the tech, if it's not actually usable and they're relying on the roaming agreements with T-Mobile and AT&T, then it doesn't matter. I mean, it'd be like the best example of this that I could give is and I know you hate when I bring up cable, but let's look at like Xfinity Mobile, right? Comcast, they have you roam on their little Wi-Fi hotspots, right? I think they have a little bit of C-band that they talked about potentially deploying to offload traffic. But at the end of the day, your real experience is coming from the Verizon network, right? That's where the experience is coming from. Same vein, Dish, they're deploying little bits here and there in Vegas. They're doing a little bit of stuff. But at the end of the day, your real experience is the T-Mobile network. What reason, why pick Dish? Why have so much faith in Dish when it's really coming off the coattails of these already established MNOs who are making dramatic changes in short spans of time? I get that they have more resources, but they're making dramatic changes, whereas Dish, solving the core problem of funding, haven't really seen. Like, small potato spending in comparison to these big guys.
Okay, so if Dish comes into the market and prices competitively, then that's all we needed. If they come in and produce a network that becomes usable, reliable, and represents a priced competitive option. So where do you guys think Dish ends up in pricing? Cheaper than Verizon?
Right around where Sprint was, like $60.
So were we glad to have Sprint when they were the cheapest carrier?
Yes, because they help set somewhat of a...
So at worst, if they become Sprint, they at least become the price competitive carrier. At worst case scenario.
Sure.
Okay, best case scenario, they build a solid network with a good experience that rivals their competitors. As good or better in some ways. Because we could argue that the operations that they're going to have are unique and greenfield, which gives them the edge. In my opinion, the fact that they are doing something that there is no playbook for. There is no proof of a 5G standalone network in the United States. It has never been done. They can write the book on the 5G standalone network. Greenfield, from scratch. They can also write the book on being a super MVNO. Here's my fear, and this is how you'll know it's going to happen. If they sign an agreement with Verizon, they'll never finish building a 5G network.
Can you elaborate, please, on what you're referring to?
Okay, so they have an agreement with T-Mobile. That's how they started, right?
Right.
They sign an agreement with AT&T, and get access to a bigger, generally more reliable network for a longer period of time at a better price. Why does that concern me? A, it extends the time that they have to build out their network. B, it's about pricing, which means they're being cheap. And then C, they have a second agreement while they still have their first. All of that is leverage. Companies that are seeking leverage are not trying to stand alone. They're crutching off of someone else. That is the only problem I have with the way things have played out. If they sign an agreement with Verizon and they end up being a super MVNO where they sell Verizon access, AT&T access, and T-Mobile access, they will never finish their 5G network because they will be on someone's network forever, whether it's in bits and pieces or extended regions of the country. That is how you know Dish will never truly want to be in this industry. If they have all three carriers to sell, that's how you'll know.
So basically, you partially agree with what I said, though. So, okay. But
I can't say that right now because they don't want to use T-Mobile anymore. I have very credible information from sources that are batting 1,000 for me. Batting 1,000, never missed. They are telling me Dish wants everyone off of T-Mobile network, and they want everyone on AT&T.
You want to hear the confirmation on that? Because I can. I'm at the place where we can hear confirmation.
Okay, so Carlos has a source that is not mine. Carlos's source is not mine. My source is different. Go ahead and corroborate it, Carlos.
Hold on, he's finishing a phone call real quick, and then he'll let you. He'll confirm it.
Big shout out to Texas Marine. Appreciate the super chat, sir.
Well,
while the Magenta Mafia was built, like an MVNO. Hey, man.
I remember they roamed on AT&T at the merger. I remember. But while we wait on Carlos, I want to ask you an honest question, Sneed, because someone's talked about their spectrum portfolio as well in the audience. Realistically speaking, with current spectrum assets that Dish has, how many subscribers can they realistically support on their network?
I don't think they'll ever be spectrum constrained. I don't think they'll ever be congested. I don't think they're going to... When do you think they ever hit 50 million subscribers? Because that's what Sprint was. Sprint had 45, 50 million subs. When did they get that, Dennis?
It depends on how well they decide to market and deploy their network, but...
I say never. I say they never hit 50 million subs.
Really? The Optimist is saying that.
Yeah, I say they end up somewhere between 30 and 40 million on the best case scenario. All right, we're gonna do some estimates. Let's call on the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard. 5, 10, 20 years from now, how many customers does Dish Wireless have?
Can I throw in a curveball? Yeah. How about 0? Dish Wireless doesn't exist by that point.
Hey, okay, he's off the phone. Hey, bro, aren't they telling you right now that you guys are being pushed to get everybody off TN to put them on BTN?
Yes, right now, BTN is a big focus right now for new customers. All existing customers at the moment are not able to get on Boost Transform Network. But yes, Boost Transform Network is the main focus for Boost Mobile.
And you guys basically want to get everybody off as much as possible off the TN side.
Eventually, yes, that's the main goal. Yeah.
All right. There you go. You heard it from the horse's mouth.
There you go.
Curtis agreed with me with the zeros. Papa loves 0. RFK 0. A lot of people are saying 0. 10 would be basically what their old Boost Mobile subscriber count was when they acquired Boost Mobile. So there's some people saying 10. A lot of people saying 0.
I'm telling you, bro. You got to think about it, bro. T-Mobile left a real sour taste in Charlie Ergen's mouth, bro. Like, when that whole thing happened where they wanted to use their spectrum for free, but then they were willing to pay other people money to use their spectrum on the 71. Like that really put the nail in the coffin where they landed this deal with AT&T, and now they want to just be done with it, bro.
Hey, Sneed, do you want to know what would change my opinion and make me have a lot more faith in Dish's success as an MNO?
I really can't think of what would change your mind. I'm getting the vibes from you that you doubt it pretty strongly, so I'm not even really sure what to guess.
I'll tell you. If a Microsoft, an Amazon, or a Google, if they were to like do a proper, like not like a partnership, not like a contract. I'm talking like 50-50 ownership, like skin in the game in this network, right? And they were bringing in their capital, their technological skills, their engineers to do it right. I'd have a lot more faith in the deployment.
Okay, does Dish have credible wireless executives?
They have some good contracts they've been working on, if that's what you're asking me.
No, it's not. Do they have talent, the people, the executives on the wireless side? Do they have wireless experience and wireless chops?
I believe they've been hiring some decent people, yes.
Okay. Have they secured funding for spectrum assets?
I think they just got done getting an extra $2 billion, if I remember.
$5 billion.
$5 billion. Okay, thank you.
They're doing every single thing every carrier is doing. They're just doing it at a smaller scale. There's no version of anything else I can say that's going to convince any of you that Dish is going to do anything. You guys have already are set in your ways. I can't say or do anything to convince you otherwise. There's nothing I can say or do. Admit it. There's nothing Dish can do until they actually do it that's going to change anyone's mind. There's no acquisition. There's no transaction. There's no contract. There's no tower site. There's no permit. There's no launch in Vegas. There's no launch in Pittsburgh. None of that will convince any of you that Dish will do it until they do it. Tell me I'm wrong.
I don't want to 100% go in on that because I leave a little bit of room in my heart.
But why? Why are you leaving a little bit of room? I literally just broke down every single person in the live chat who said zero. Every single person who said they're going to be bought out. I just exactly what you guys are thinking. I just said it aloud.
I leave a little bit of room in my heart for the what if because I've seen crazier things happen. But yes, generally speaking, I agree with that statement. But to defend my case, just let me bring up one last thing. The reason why I feel that way is because Dish historically has not had a great track record of, deploying it. How long has Dish been acquiring spectrum and saying they were going to deploy a cellular network? It's been a while, right?
Yeah, since 20. I think their first licenses were acquired in 2012, maybe 11.
Okay, so it's been. We might as well call it a literal decade. Yeah. And it required basically the government forcing them to actually do it. And even then, I feel like they might try, but I feel like knowing Charlie, he's got ulterior motives. Like, calling a spade, we rag on T-Mobile for being cheap about their network deployment, right? Or at least I do. I think you call it too sometimes, right? Charlie Egan, in my book, is basically taking a relatively T-Mobile-esque approach to his network deployment. T-Mobile did well, but we didn't actually see them explode in success.
But here's the difference. Everybody rooted for T-Mobile, and everybody shits on Dish.
What I was going to say was that we didn't see T-Mobile start exploding in success until after the failed merger with AT&T, where they got a little bit of extra CapEx or spending money, and they got some well-needed spectrum. Dish is coming from a position where no one's giving them the extra money. And I think that combined with their spectrum allocations, they're not set up in a great position, although I think they did participate and get a little bit of extra spectrum that's going to help them. They're not really set up in an ideal situation to deploy a full-fledged network. They just don't have the funds that I can see. I mean, their main source of revenue, their TV source, is long been dying, and their current subscriber count with Boost and other subsidies
but
is shrinking rapidly.
but they're getting money from the investors that are going in on the enterprise side. They are actually investing in the infrastructure to help build. Why do you think they're signing these contracts like crazy with with Amazon, with who else did they got it with IBM and all that?
It's a tough spot. I mean, I feel like I'm pessimistic with a lot of companies. It's just who I am, I guess. I have a hard time being super like high expectations just because, I mean, it's the unknown, right? They can perform a miracle. I could be well wrong. We can go back and get this video clipped of how Dennis was super wrong, and I'd be glad to be super wrong because competition is good for us. Price competitiveness is good for us. In my head, there's so many challenges that in my eyes are almost unsurmountable, especially when, like, as you mentioned, T-Mobile's punching down on them hard, that I just don't see how they can thrive. I just don't see how they can do it. I don't even know if Charlie Egan has the willpower to endure through the many obstacles that are ahead. And for what progress has been made, it's relatively small for the amount of time that's elapsed. I mean, especially if we're talking about a small network. I mean, why is Vegas not already lit up as a bastion of we are doing something? Where's the Dish brand? Where are the Dish plans? Why is Dish hiding behind their MVNOs, right? Like, no one knows Dish Wireless exists except for us in this tech space. Like, that's the truth. You talk to the average person, they probably think Boost still runs on Sprint. Like, where's the outcry? Where's the social outreach on Facebook?
I just don't understand. I will never understand this. People rooted for the underdog when it was T-Mobile, but they won't root for the underdog that is Dish. It doesn't make sense to me.
The difference is marketing. The difference is marketing, Sneed. But there's zero marketing.
But the principle's the same. If you're operating on logic and not emotional attachment to some dude that wears pink gear and had long hair and just called everybody Dumb and Dumber, if you take that out of the equation, what was so likable? Like, he brainwashed people. You want Charlie Ergen to go up there with thongs, bro, and pass out thongs? Bro, he's a serious guy. He doesn't dance with thongs.
Exactly, bro. That's the difference between an executive motto versus a damn joke, bro. A clown show, basically. And this is why, like, yeah, in certain places it might work decent, but in the major areas where it needs to work, this is why it's a damn shit show. And I'm sorry, it really is. Because out here, bro, I've had people in the damn community begging me to drive down to the Strip to meet them up with a Verizon son. Begging me.
No, I'm calling a spade in that why are people rooting for the underdog in a situation, in a circumstance, but then when there's a new underdog, they just want to shit on them. They just pour it on. You know, like,
and this is the thing where people,
so you don't really root for the underdog because what is it?
This is another one, Sneed. Remember when they were sabotaging? They've been sabotaging Boost and Dish since the beginning, bro. They were sending text messages to their customers, like poaching customers, and they're still doing it because even Homeboy had told me here that they still do it.
Here's my point, and this is what I'll leave it with, Dennis, because I think you've done a pretty good job of highlighting all the shortcomings of Dish and all the things that they've done wrong in the past. Spectrum hoarding, not bringing the spectrum to market. I kind of put that on Verizon. I blame Verizon, actually, for the reason Dish has so much spectrum. Why'd they let Dish outbid them for AWS? That was literally the only thing that Verizon has needed for the last 5 years, was extra 5 to 10 megahertz of AWS. Dish bought it all. Bro, Dish spent $9 billion on AWS. Verizon spent $10 billion. AT&T spent $10 billion. Why didn't Verizon spend 15? You know, that's on Verizon, but that's not Dish's fault. You know, it's an auction, right?
Right.
Highest bidder wins. Now let me leave you with this. Dish is new. They're trying to build a network during the pandemic. There's all types of chip shortages, labor shortages. Nobody's cutting them any slack. People are pouring it on thick. And then you have T-Mobile,
bro, they're still making it happen.
Hold on, bro. T-Mobile just consumed our competitor in Sprint, took all their spectrum, took all their towers, all their customers, eliminated that carrier. They passed AT&T on subscribers, right? They became the number 2 carrier in the country, right?
Right.
And then they're supposed to facilitate Dish. That's in the DOJ agreement. And what do? Try to bury them. They make them pay more for access. They charge them more money per line for access. They don't want to pay for the spectrum usage. Remember? You guys forget about that lease agreement. The DOJ had to intervene. T-Mobile didn't want to pay Dish. Right? They don't want to have a deal with them. They want to turn off 3G on, 2 million of their customers? Come on, bro. You know, everybody's so selective and just really pouring it on Dish. And everybody is just dropping buckets of crap on them. Unbelievable, man. And people have the guts to tell me, I want to see competition in the marketplace. No, you don't. You want Dish to fail. Don't kid yourself. You know, if you guys don't like what I'm saying, it's because it's true. Anybody who says, I don't like Dish, I don't like what they're doing, what do you care? You should want a competitor to succeed. If you mean what you say, you'd be encouraging of anything good that develops there. Oh, Vegas is done. I don't believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. You said build a network and do a market. They do a market. I'll do another one. You know, I'll see it when they do towers. They start permitting in people's cities. No, I need to see more. The same people that said, I want competition are shitting on Dish. That is disgusting, hypocritical, and it makes you look terrible.
Bro, it's needed. This is the thing, though. They're not going to understand this until they see, like how Dennis was saying earlier, till we hit 3 carriers and then all the prices get jacked up.
What I want to know, Carlos, is this.
We get an unlimited plan that gets capped at 512 after you use so many gigs. That's what's going to end up happening.
What I want to know is this,
and then
Carlos.
They're going to cry.
What I want to know is this. What version of the world is better? With Dish in business or with Dish selling out? What happens? You tell me what happens to Dish's spectrum once they sell it. You tell me, since everybody knows everything, you tell me. Where does Dish's spectrum go? Who's going to take it? And what are they going to do with it? And how do we know it's going to be better than Dish?
They're going to monopolize on it. And then now the prices can go up because there's one less competitor in the market.
I'm looking for answers.
I mean, I can give you three potential possibilities of what happens. Option A is if Dish goes out of business, they get liquidated and firms like Apollo acquire the spectrum assets that then lease it off to whoever wants to use it. That's one option. Option B is that a larger company that has CapEx who for some reason has interest to enter the mobile space takes advantage of this opportunity and buys up the parts that are important to them, whether that be in the form of some major cable conglomerate ally of like Comcast and Spectrum or an Amazon or whatever.
Question, Dennis. Is it easier to build a network right now in 2022 or in 2032 when T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T are even bigger?
It's easier to build it right now. I was just answering your question of what happens if Dish sells out is what I was getting at. I also I just want to say also really quickly, for what it's worth, I think I can say this pretty fairly. I rag on T-Mobile for all their misgivings that have happened all throughout this time, and I still rag on T-Mobile for their terrible execution, in my opinion, of 5G. You know, you hear me all the time talk about how bad N41 is in Pittsburgh because they skimp out on the backhaul or they cut corners on whatever else, right? Like, like I know my voice also naysaying Dish doesn't feel great because there's other people naysaying Dish, but I really can't think of anything that Dish is doing that is meaningful to the market. Like, you asked, like, why did people, support T-Mobile when they were doing the thing? It was because of the marketing. Like humans, yes, we like to think we're very logical, but at the end of the day, we are very emotional in our creatures and buying decisions. Like, if you ever learn anything about psychology, emotion is actually the thing that gets people to oftentimes say yes if specs for one company A and B are the same, or even if they're not the same, they'll base it off emotion. And I'm well aware of the fact that as much as I like to think of myself as a logical creature, I might have some emotional faults. Dish isn't very like communicative. A lot of the things that we hear are like back end side channel stuff, like weird legal disclosures or fantastic information you were able to gather, right? But like, and like I said, Vegas, great first step. And like I said, great job working out the AT&T deal. You can go back on the Best Phone Plans podcast. I literally say to Stetson, like, this is really good for Dish. This is very great. And the same way when we had Ting on, I talked about how this is great for Dish from a back-end financial standpoint. That's awesome. But there's been no communication to us. And I'm not saying there has to be, but if you want to convince people like myself to be like really excited about stuff, there has to be somewhat of a hype train built, and there has been none. What exactly am I excited about when the only things I'm hearing about are Verizon and AT&T with C-band and T-Mobile with N41, right? These are exciting things. mmWave on Verizon, getting speed tested. Holy crap, 4 gigabits per second. Wow, that's like actually fantastic. And also, too, remember, when Verizon was doing mmWave, I was harsh on them until I actually got to use it, if you remember. Yeah. You saw it on the stream. I was awestruck when I got to use it. Before that, I was like, I was sort of in the camp like, this is good, but whatever, right? But then I got to use it, right? And you saw my opinion change, and I corrected myself once I got to use it, to be fair, right?
Yeah,
Dish hasn't been,
I'm not judging one's doubts about Dish. I'm questioning the principle of, from one side of the mouth, somebody saying we want a competitor, I want a competitor, and the other side of the mouth saying they're not going to be a competitor. So ultimately, what was this merger creating a fourth carrier for, right?
Yeah, I mean, can I just say ultimately, I blame lawmakers. Yeah. Ultimately.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm going to be honest, and you're going to hate me for saying this, but if I had the choice to pick who was going to take the mantle of there being a fourth carrier, if there must be one in the market, right? If I was to choose the mantle of who would be the best person to be a fourth carrier, I would have picked Amazon because of all their AWS assets and their CapEx and the fact that they're able to juggle so many different things. I mean, they got delivery down on point. Like, could you imagine if Amazon was running this, how they could get next day shipping for your phone, right? Or the return process? Like, Amazon's great. And if Amazon didn't want to do it, then I would have picked Google. And if Google didn't want to do it, I would have picked Microsoft. And if all three of them didn't want to do it, then I would have looked at ISPs, traditional ISPs. Like, again, you're going to hate me when I say this, but I would have looked at Comcast. They have a ton of fiber, ton of backhaul, and already access to a ton of permits, so it'd be pretty easy for them to deploy it. And I could see multiple benefits in the same way that T-Mobile and Verizon are offering like a fixed wireless solution. I could see how Comcast could do that. They got a butt ton of money. I mean, they're just stupid massive from a money standpoint. Like, I could see them being able to do it. Would they be a Sprint level of competitive pricing? I don't know. Maybe they'll do some promo shenanigans where they force you to bundle or do some 2-year contract pricing at this rate and jack it up. But would they be able to do it? I mean, probably, or at least I'd have a little more faith in it. Would I be super excited? I'd probably still be in the camp of AT&T's God tier. Why would I pick Comcast? But I'd have more faith in them being able to execute, is my point.
Big shout out to Texas Marine. Thanks for the super chat, bud. Magenta
Ryan said Amazon doesn't need to be in everything. I mean, honestly, honestly, I know Amazon got a lot of problems too, and this would turn into a 10-hour stream if we started talking about them. But at the end of the day, I freaking love Amazon in my life. Like, Sneed, you probably don't agree with me. I pay for Prime. Next day shipping is god tier. And anytime they screw something up, they've always refunded me. The customer service has been on point. Didn't matter if I talked to an on-seas person or an international person. It's always been a good experience for me with Amazon.
I think the people that are kind of like anti-Amazon, it's more about the data. It's more about the cornering of the market. It's more about the monopolistic tendencies. It's not really.
Bro,
They don't have a problem with the services. I mean, think about it, dog. You're getting shipments in 4 to 8 hours. If you're near the hub, you're getting it within a day.
Yeah, but
dude, literally, not joking, for where I'm at, bro, I sometimes get shipments within like 8 hours of my order.
Yeah, I believe it.
And also, I'll just say this. If we're talking about money spent, dude, Amazon Prime Video, most underrated streaming service that no one talks about.
Big shout out to Texas Marine, another super chat. Thanks for all that you do for the channel, man. He said you are concerned about wireless chops, U.S. Cellular. He brings up U.S. Cellular, but that's like a small family-run, owned and operated. You know, they're not into...
honestly, they would be in a better position in my eyes as a fourth competitor than Dish
But Dish has national licensing.
Well, I was about to say, if they got access to the spectrum that Dish had, I'd have more faith in them. And if they got a little bit of a stimulus of some kind, like if the government put in some disclosure that said like T-Mobile must give 10 billion or something, 20 billion or something to over the span of so many years for U.S. Cellular to build out or something. I mean, really, the biggest problem for Dish is money, right? Like that's the biggest problem. Money fixes most problems. Dish just doesn't have enough, in my opinion, to build a nationalized network.
I mean, they've got a match. You know, they're building from scratch, so they're doing it on a pretty impressive clip right now. I mean, we're seeing permits going up. I mean, Carlos was estimating that the builds are between about 10 to 15,000. I mean, it's pretty cost effective.
Agreed, but there's a concept in project management. It's called I think it's called three key constraints, and there's 3 of them. Cost, time, and quality. You can have 2 of the 3. If you want to build a quality network very quickly, it's going to be super expensive. If you want to build a quality network that is cheap, it's going to take a very long time. Dish is in a scenario right now, and it's triple constraint, I just remembered it, but Dish is in a scenario right now where they have a time constraint because of the FCC deadlines, right? They have a cost constraint because they don't have money, which means the quality is going to ultimately suffer.
I agree. I think the gear they're using is very mediocre. I think what is it? JM Labs, the antennas and the radios, it's Fujitsu. Nobody uses that here in the US.
And here's the thing too.
That's like an Asian brand, like that would go into like Asian countries where they're building networks on a budget.
And here's the thing too. Remember, and I say this all the time, so you can't say otherwise. I'm always a big proponent of do it once, do it right. There's no way in hell that Dish doesn't have to ultimately end up going back to these sites to replace that equipment, which is ultimately in the long term going to be more expensive. I mean, it can be argued they were going to have to do upgrades anyway because 5G in its early phases, but this is definitely going to dramatically increase the amount of times they're going to have to revisit these sites. Well,
I think the next time they visit sites, it's going to be to put up CBRS gear. It's going to be putting up 6 gigahertz and 12 gigahertz gear.
Eduardo, yeah, basically, I looked at Xfinity Mobile's success as an MVNO, and I do think they would be a threat being an MNO. I that's pretty spot on with what I said earlier.
Yeah, because they're the owner of infrastructure.
A lot of it. In 38 states.
I mean, what if Dish somehow was enabled by the FCC to operate some of those higher frequencies from satellite?
I would have a lot of interest in that combination of things if they figured out a way to make satellite be like the basis of their coverage in some way.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that's a foregone conclusion, and I know that's complicated, and I mean, what a can of worms for the FCC to deal with, right?
Well, I mean, if they were able to do that, that's something that's both A, unique, B, they would literally not have any dead spots, essentially. Like, satellite literally basically covers everywhere. So that it's...
Yeah, that's true.
So that would fix a lot of their problems from almost immediately. Like, that would be really impressive. That's truly revolutionary, and I'd be excited about that. Like, holy crap, freaking affordable cellular-based internet. Because, like, satellite-based phones exist. They're just stupid expensive. Dish found a way to, like, provide that with, like, reasonable data speeds considering satellite at a relatively affordable price point for the considerations of what that is. Like, even if they charged $80, if they were offering like a satellite connection like that, you basically have coverage, like I said, everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in Timbuktu. That's incredible. That'd be insane.
Yeah, but the capacity is hard to offer. Zach says Dish permits here filed this spring through the fall. No activity yet that I've seen. I think that shows I think the supply chain is an issue right now. That is partially what's going on with C-band, I think, too. You know, for Verizon and AT&T to be willing to postpone and delay C-band launch had nothing to do with the FAA. Had nothing to do with aviation. I think it had everything to do with supply and them trying to install more new gear. That's just me speculating, but I don't think it was the FAA. I think they played it off to look like the good guy. I think it's been the supply chain, and I just don't think they have enough sites done yet. Why in the world would they update 2,000 sites nationally and then say we turned on C-band that everybody says, where is it? They probably want to launch with at least 5,000 to 10,000 sites within the first month of launch. By May, every major market should have a substantial build of C-band. You know? So Dish is not immune to supply constraints. Verizon is not, and AT&T is not, and T-Mobile is not. I truly believe that if T-Mobile had their way, they would not be upgrading 900 sites a week. They'd be upgrading 1,500 sites a week. But there's labor restrictions. There's labor shortages. There's supply shortages. There's time shortages. It's all those things.
I just want to quickly throw out, there's a comment we overlooked. You might have caught it, but from Derek when we were talking about possible people to buy. That would be interesting. He said he thinks that an international carrier would be more reasonable than Amazon buying. So I want to pose a question to you, Sneed. One, do you think the current political climate would allow for an international carrier to actually come back into the U.S. market as a cellular provider? And if so, what international carrier do you think, or what international company do you think would be a good option?
I don't see that being a viable option.
Because
I don't see it being a realistic option. I mean, Vodafone was Verizon,
right?
You know, and then Verizon bought them out and became the Verizon we have today. You know, they acquired Altel and did all those acquisitions, and you know that's what it was. And then, you know, Deutsche Telekom is the last. Deutsche Telekom, Los is going to give away phones. I know that. Ho ho ho.
Ho 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 ho.
Yeah, you know, SoftBank, Masa, that whole thing. You know, that was terrible. You know, Deutsche Telekom with T-Mobile. I mean, that's working out pretty nicely, but they only serve as the parent company. The company's independent. You know, T-Mobile US that's an independent company.
I don't see an international company coming in because of the political climate, but for some reason, if things were to change with our international relations with China specifically,
it's up 2 phones.
I feel like Huawei, if international relations changed with China and political climate changed, I feel like Huawei would be a good, competent option to deploy a wireless network.
Huawei?
Yeah. They make a ton of 5G equipment. Like they literally make
right. They make the gear, but that's vendor.
Well, they make the gear, they make the phones, they make the modems. I mean, like they make a lot of stuff, right? And
yeah, but the carrier, you would have to succeed in American business.
Well, I just looked at it as basically they got like infinite money from the CCP.
Yeah, but that's not inviting to the U.S.
No, like I said, if the political climate changed, was the key caveat.
I can't even see that world, man. That is, I mean, just think about it. It's like the world would have to flip on its ear.
It's very far-fetched. Like I said,
man.
The political climate would have to change with China, like I said. But I'm just doing an academic for the sake of talking. But hey, let's get on to something fun. Who doesn't like gifts? Santa Carlos here. Santa Carlos here has some special gifts for all you fantastic viewers who've managed to be good and make it all the way to the end, or relatively to the end of this stream. Carlos, go ahead and take it away.
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas! Ghetto Santa in the house! Ho, ho, ho! We are going to give away to the good little boys and girls cellular phones today. Ho, ho, ho. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Santa Carlos he brings good tidings. Oh my goodness. What is he giving away today, Dennis?
I am sorry about that, but I had the reindeers were telling me that we will have more cellular gifts coming up tomorrow.
Carlos, are you going to do a live stream and do some giveaways tomorrow?
I don't know.
Well, I thought you had giveaways. I'm sorry.
I never said we didn't. We probably have them here on the stream. Ho, 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 ho.
Hey, Santalos, are you going to be giving away service with those gifts?
They come with service. They come with a month. Either we got TN or AN. Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, Santa Carlos, you're so nice. You fill up all the stockings with gifts, and you don't put coal in people's stockings.
Oh, yes, we do. We put coal for the trolls. Ho, ho, ho.
Why don't you tell him about the shirt? Why don't you tell him about the shirt, Carlos? Or Santalos?
Oh, yes, we do. We have the shirt. Ho, 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 ho. We got it right here. Ho, 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 ho. Ho! They are part of the SMT and Los's channel merge. Hit us up on the Twitter if you want one of these shirts. Ho, ho, ho.
And I believe you do fast shipping on that, Los?
We do 2-day express shipping. Ho, ho, ho.
And no profits made. He just sells it at cost to make.
That's right. Okay. All right. So that's enough of Santa. All right. Hey, Steve, can you do a share screen? I need you to Google number picker. What is the number picker things for there, and share the screen, and we're gonna have people pick numbers, bro. Can you do that?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay. Well, we need it.
Is it a wheel?
We're
Carlos,
gonna give
or
away
a generator.
Yeah, it's a wheel. It's a wheel. Yeah. And then you put the number. We'll put the number sequence there, bro. And then we'll have people in the live chat put numbers down. So, which one should we give away? Hey, we're going to let Dennis pick. Should we do a TN SIM Cellular, or should we do an AN SIM 832 5G?
AN SIM all day, because the A32 is a better phone than the Cellular.
A lot of people like both. But, all right. Well, you know what? We'll give away both. We'll do 1 and 1. Okay. I'll save these other ones for tomorrow. All right. There you go. Okay, guys. So you see the wheel. So Sneed, we need you to change that max number. We need you to change the minimum number to 100.
Bro, we got like 73 people in here, dog.
It should just be 1 to 100. Just make it 1 to 100.
Yeah, there you go. 1 to 100.
There you go.
So do not put your numbers down yet, guys. Hold on. Let Sneed figure this out. Okay, so now that Sneed has figured it out, guys, we're gonna give you 2 minutes to put down the numbers. Literally 2 minutes, and I am about to start the timer. Hold on a second. Let me start the timer now. Let's see. Where's the clock? And the timer starts now.
All right, so you guys can pick a number between 1 and 100. Is that right, Los?
Yep, 1 and 100. And whoever either gets the right number, or if nobody gets the right number, and you got one person that has one that's below it, and then you have one person above it, then we would take those 2 people and let them draw again. And then
traditionally you take the one that was under, right?
Yeah, but we give it another. We spice it up, bro. We spice it up.
Part of me always.
Is this for the Cellular or the A32, Los?
It's for the A32.
This one's gonna be. No. We're gonna do the Cellular first. We'll do the A32 next.
Okay, this is for the Cellular first.
Part of me always wishes, well, not always, but part of me sometimes wishes that I was just a viewer. I don't need an extra phone.
I'm going to have Dancer deliver the phone.
Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, and Blitzen.
Carlos, we got to get you a Santa costume proper and make you do a live stream with it on.
Bro, this is thanks to the sponsor at Boost, bro. Thanks to my sponsor at Boost Mobile, Eric at Boost Mobile.
The homie
7435 Southeastern, bro. He makes it happen. So if you're in Vegas,
Boost.
You need to make it happen, bro.
I'm sorry for the past. I'm sorry for the past hour of conversation about your parent company.
Bro, no, a lot of the. They show me a lot. He shows me a lot of behind the scenes stuff, bro. This is why I know it's promising. All right, guys. All right. I'm gonna
go ahead and end it.
I'm gonna give it 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. I gave you guys an extra 10 seconds.
All right. So, is Elmer the last guess? All right. Jarrett's the last guess.
Okay. Yeah. No, Jarrett was the last guess. And remember, somebody put 2 numbers on here. We're only going to take the first one they counted. It's frozen on my end. What the hell?
75.
Curtis got that. Curtis Sleeth got that.
Yeah, Big Kurt. Yeah, SMT patron and supporter.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. That's the second phone he's won. I just shipped the thing.
Oh, Curtis, do you want us to Curtis, if you want it, take it. No, nothing wrong with it.
He said give it to Zach.
Yeah, if you want us to redraw or whatever, or somebody, should we go to the next closest number? What do you think we should do, Lowe's?
Well, he just said give it to Zach.
Yeah, he's saying give it to Zach.
Okay, well, Zach, if that's the case, Curtis was very generous. Congratulations. Make sure you take a screenshot of this live stream with your user things on and send it on the Twitter to either Sneed or myself with an address to send the phone to, and it will be mailed first thing in the morning.
All right, that was for the Cellular 5G, right, Los?
Okay. Yep, that was for the Cellular. So now you're going to change the combination. So change the combination starting at 100 and then put 190 or 200. Put from 100 to 200. Fuck it. 100 to 200.
We doing another drawing?
Yeah, he's giving away the 832 now.
Oh, snap. Yeah. This one's for the 832. Now, we were picking numbers between 100 and 200.
Sneed, have you tested on any of these budget phones?
No.
See, that I'd be generally curious to see what the difference is between budget performance and flagship. Like from a speed testing standpoint.
Okay, guys, we are about to. All right, count it down. All right, Dennis, when do you want me to start?
3, 2, 1. Yep.
All right, 2 minutes, guys. 2 minutes.
But yeah, that's something I would generally be curious about to see what the speeds look like.
All right, Dave B came in with a one.
Tell you this right now.
Dave B came in with 137 as a guest, just so you guys know. Dave B 137.
Okay, because I don't see that.
Yeah, he did. It's the Google account problem.
I'm gonna guess. Not that it matters, 'cause I'm not playing, but I'm gonna guess 155. See if I'm right.
Oh, snaps. And what happens if you pull 155, bro, and nobody else did? Then we're gonna have to spin that wheel again.
I'll pick someone to give it to, someone that hasn't gotten it before.
Okay. Okay. Well, there you go. All right. So there you go. If you guys, if Dennis wins, then he will be picking another winner.
What's the over-under? I don't know what the over-under is. I have no idea what that even means, Michael.
I'm not participating,
What's the
Carlos. I'm just
over-under?
messing around.
I don't know what that means,
What's
bro.
the
We're not
over-under?
betting. I have no idea.
The 2-1 over-under, 2-1.
2-1. Oh, what the?
No, I'm just messing. All right, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Hey, Gene, good to see you, man.
Bro, I'm telling you, bro. This is
Yo, Gene, guess a number between 100 and 200, Gene, so you can get this phone, dog.
Bro, I'm telling you, this sponsor, bro, he's so awesome, bro. He's such a good guy,
Yo,
man.
Term, why are you spamming,
I guess I've gotten
dog?
him a lot of business.
Why is Term spamming,
Yeah, only
dog?
one number, dude.
Come on, big Term.
Man.
Act like you know, dog. Damn.
2, 1. All right.
Who's the last entry, Los?
Cut.
Last entry, we'll do the T-wired.
All right. Ready?
And Term is going to be whatever his first number was. That's it.
All right. We ready? Spin?
All right, it's up to you. Drum roll.
$133. We got a winner. I saw somebody. Jarrett, 133. Jarrett topping, 133.
There we go.
All right. Did he get it actually?
A winner.
Jarrett topping? All right,
Jarrett
we got
topping,
a winner.
133.
Dinner. You know the drill. Screenshot, send it to Sneed or myself. Which you logged in on this live stream right now. Send us a screenshot with an address, and we got you. It will be mailed out first thing in the morning with tracking number confirmation. Yeah.
There you go.
So we're gonna be doing these all the way till Christmas, guys. So you guys better be subscribed to all our channels.
Ho.
That's right. The next one,
might be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The next one might be under the best phone plans live stream. It might be under our
Carlos is crashing live streams, just giving out phones, dog.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna have to crash live streams, bro. So you guys better be subscribed to these to these guys.
You better be good boys and girls, or else we're gonna be smacking you with these phones, dog.
Well, before we end this stream, I want to give an extra special thank you to the man, the myth, the legend, Sneed Mobile Tech, for allowing me to be on and interact with your fantastic audience. I want to thank Carlos for popping on as well. And of course, I want to thank all of the viewers who have made it all the way to the end. If you're not already, make sure you become a member of Sneed's Patreon because he does fantastic exclusive content. And if you're still itching for more content, please feel free to check out the Best Phone Plans channel, where I and my co-host Stetson Doggett do many a different show on many a different topics. We recently had one on with Craig from reviews.org and Sherry Riggs from Whistle Out, which I thought was a pretty fun show. But we've also had on some different guests like Aaron North from Mint Mobile, and we have many future guests planned for next year. But with that, Sneed, do you have any final closing thoughts?
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for coming on. Big shout out to Best Phone Plans podcast. And you guys, if any of the moderators can get a link for the podcast channel, get that up there for Dennis.
Yep.
And also, if we can also get a link for Carlos's channel for those of you that are not subscribed to his. If you guys like what Carlos does, I mean, dude, Carlos, thank you for making the giveaways, facilitating that, getting these phones out to these people, helping them out with new phones and stuff. That's amazing. Thank you. And we appreciate the partnership we have with Los Mobile. Yeah, dude, this is huge. Big shout out to Eric at the Boost Mobile store. What was the address again, Los? Plug it.
7435 Southeastern Suite 101 in Vegas.
There you go.
He's hiring, right? He's hiring?
Yep, he's hiring too. He needs good help if you live in the Vegas area. Competitive wages and commission.
Yeah, Jared, just go ahead and message Carlos on Twitter, and he'll facilitate that for you, dog. I know Jared's on Twitter.
Like I said, So
or you can message me on Patreon if you want.
It might be the best phone plans I mean, it could be the RFK live stream. I'm gonna be crashing another live stream next. Guys better stay tuned. It could be even Stetson's main channel. Who knows?
All right,
Hey,
so big shout out to Santa Los, big shout out to Carlos S. Tech, Dennis, Eric from Boost. I mean, everybody, and of course, everybody. Thank you for your super chats and your donations. Thank you to everyone who liked this video. If you haven't, please do that now if you want to help out the channel. Also, if you're new, if this is your first time here, subscribe for more. Turn on the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload. My Patreon page link is in the description box, my Twitter handle, and my email address if you guys want to reach out for any reason. Thank you all again for watching. Big shout out to all the guests and everybody in the live chat, and especially the replay crew. You guys are the best too. Can't forget about you guys. That's it. We out this piece. Peace.
peace.
Peace.